The mostly complete lore of Hollow Knight by Moss Back was recommended, so let's go. I want, you know, like the creature, what is it, the Critterpedia? There should be an entry for Moss Bag. I like how in Silksong, Hornet like has opinions on every single creature. Moss Bag, just a bag of moss, not much else to it. Okay, Igaiso! Let me do this. Spoilers! Oh no! I'm going to get spoiled.
If you were to ask me, what is your favorite video game ever made? I would have to say Cory in the House for the Nintendo DS. But Hollow Knight would be a close second. Hollow Knight was released on February 24th, 2017 by Team Cherry.
Was it
an
2017?
indie game studio based in
Really?
the mythical land of Adelaide, South Australia.
South
Over the past 3
Australia!
years,
It's the
Hollow
Australians'
Knight has
fault.
become an indie darling. The game has sold over 3.5 million copies. It was the opening game at ADGQ 2019. There's a Hollow Knight book, a line of plushies,
Wait,
t-shirts.
Okay, I will tell you, I seriously contemplating getting that grub plushie. Is it still sold, guys? Can I still get that grubbling plushie? I just like that you can squeeze it and it goes it's so cute. But yeah, I liked Hollow Knight a lot despite not being able to finish the first game. To the point where like I bought a pin. I bought a pin of Hornet and Knight.
Nicotine patches, nuclear warheads,
What?
and even vinyl records for all you goddamn hipsters.
Hipsters.
Team Cherry had one goal when making Hollow Knight. They wanted to create a world that allowed players to get completely lost in exploration. We can see this desire in Hollow Knight's design.
No, I got the lost part. I got so freaking lost. I was just like, please, somebody tell me where to go. I swear I've been here before. And then you go to the very end and it's like, sorry, you can't progress because you don't have like the certain badge. Like, could they have made it a little less lost? I do appreciate that in Silksong you're like less lost because it's more linear, I suppose. But also that doesn't stop me. It really doesn't stop me.
The levels in Hollow Knight are massive, with secrets and rewards hidden in every nook and cranny. Be that powerful charms, special abilities, or, the game's navigation system.
Wait, what was that? What was that? What was that? I didn't get that far. Huh? Was that a problem? The rancid egg? Oh, the rancid egg that you can buy in the beginning? I was just always told never to buy that egg, and no one ever told me why. Maybe they'll tell me why.
Requires the player to work for their map, forcing them to make a stronger mental image of the world in their head.
Conifer.
Christopher Larkin's score and Ari Gibson's.
Wait, what was that part that he just said? Force us to have a strong idea of the map? Sorry, I just never, ever took off that compass. I get lost down the street. Mental image of the world? I have no mental image. I don't know where I came from. I don't know where I'm going. You will like pry this compass from my cold dead hands. I will fight a boss with the compass because I don't know how to get back.
Stronger mental image of the world in their head. Christopher Larkin's score and Ari Gibson's artwork lend to this as well, creating an atmosphere that the player won't want to leave. But there's one aspect of Hollow Knight that keeps people like me coming back. The world building.
That's true. World building's very cute.
When Super Metroid launched in 1994, it stood out for its amazing sense of immersion. Now in 1994, I was busy not being alive, but I've watched enough YouTube video essays to know that this game was a big deal. In case you didn't know, Super Metroid is basically the granddaddy of all Metroidvanias.
I've actually never seen
That's
this
why
gameplay.
they're called Metroidvanias.
Yeah.
Now in Super Metroid, there are moments that give the player a sense of depth. Basically the feeling that this world exists outside of Samus's interactions with it. In the room right before that diabetic crocodile thing, Samus can find the corpse of a random soldier. His inclusion here doesn't change the gameplay at all, but instead gives the player a sense of wonder about the world they are exploring. Who was this guy? Why was he here in the first place? Did he like jazz?
Did he
Now,
like
finding
jazz?
dead bodies and other random garbage is pretty cool, right? Well, Hollow Knight basically does the same thing, about a dozen times. Through its world building,
Mr.
Hollow
Peanut on
Knight
the
turns
bottom?
Hallownest into a living kingdom. You can sense the ancient history of the land when you look at dilapidated structures or giant barred doors. Nothing feels like it was put into the game randomly. There's a reason for it all.
Ooh.
Except those reasons aren't the easiest to uncover. Hollow Knight's narrative is buried under layers of NPC dialogue, item descriptions, lore tablets, and even additional content like the Quarrel comic and Fangamer's Wanderer's Journal.
Oh.
These past 3 years have seen an insane amount of research by the Hollow Knight community to make sense of Team Cherry's sprawling world.
I'm not gonna lie, I benefit from that because if I don't know something, I just look up on the wiki. And they're like, did you know from this random note and this 2 lines of dialogue that this is true? I'm like, oh, thank you.
We've even made it to the point where people are looking at the in-game signs to try and decipher Hallownest's logographic language. In this video, I hope to give you a long and detailed look into the world of Hollow Knight, exploring Hallownest's history and uncertain future.
No, it's Hornet.
When I'm not busy making surprisingly accurate Super Smash Bros. Roster speculation videos, or insightful podcasts about beloved subjects like the Donkey Kong Country television series, or whatever this was supposed to be, I'm usually making videos about Hollow Knight.
Oh.
And while I am a seasoned Hollow Knight lore expert, I cannot confirm that every musing or theory presented in this video is completely correct. I highly recommend.
So they are called Mossbag because of Hollow Knight. They are the Hollow Knight like person. Wow.
And checking out the lore section of the Hollow Knight wiki if you want a more
see, this is what I do. I don't know something, I just look this up. Wiki, my beloved.
Or neutral explanation of Hollow Knight's lore. But if you're too lazy to read, then I
Reading, disgusting.
suggest you sit back, order some Domino's pizza, or just grab a block of cheese from the fridge and enjoy the mostly complete lore of Hollow Knight.
Wait, do they eat in Hollow Knight? Can you eat? Have they ever eaten? I don't remember there being food. Is there food? Huh? Well, Hornet also never ate in Silksong, but I don't know if they just never got that far. There's like an inn that you can go to and like you can order drinks. The soul count? A quest for some bugs wanted food, but other bugs wanted food. Do you ever eat? Does the knight ever eat? I'm like so confused now.
It's a simple fact of life that every human worships a god, be that technology, ideologies, or in rare cases, God. As it turns out, the bugs in Hallownest pretty much operate in the same way. From the Mosskin born from the dream of a giant slug, to the emo kids of the ancient civilization who literally worship the darkness, there is no shortage of things to worship in the world of Hollow Knight. Our story begins with a creature very much worthy of worship. A creature born from the carcass of a worm. The carcass can still be found in the Kingdom's Edge, and it's our only good look at what worms actually looked like. At the time Hollow Knight occurs, it is suggested there are no worms left in the world. They were incredibly long creatures that featured little to no limbs. Another more mysterious property of worms was that they had some kind of prescience or foresight. Basically, they could see the future to some capacity. It isn't clear how effective this ability was. Considering how the entire race went extinct, this foresight ability must have been pretty shit. Getting back to this particular worm carcass, it is
it's the same with what I say. I can predict what's going on, but you can't prevent it.
Explained that this worm traveled across the distant mountains and wastelands beyond Hallownest. Once it arrived in Hallownest, the worm died. Except not really. Inside the maw of the carcass sits a pale broken egg, out of which hatched a new form of worm, a being of meager shell. This form of the worm is usually referred to as the Pale King, and he's the character basically responsible for everything that happens in Hollow Knight.
He's so small.
The Pale King is a higher being, a type of creature that exists above all others. His body was said to shine with a radiant visage that harmed those who looked upon him. The ultimate goal of the Pale King seemed to be in line with that of other worms. A line from the cryptic Mr. Mushroom reads, "Worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall." In other words, it's just in their nature. Dogs wag their tails,
to rule?
Cats bury their shit,
hypnotize people?
and worms bring massive amounts of bugs into their service in order to form long-standing kingdoms and civilizations.
To rule.
And here in a far corner of the world, the Pale King emerged from the corpse of his former self and began to build his eternal kingdom, Hallownest. There's this one slight problem. there's like people already living there.
Oh.
The area that would eventually become Hallownest was already filled with mantises,
I thought they only
bees,
moved in
moths,
afterwards.
spiders, mushrooms, and bush cosplayers. Each of these groups were already
bush
operating
cosplayers
with
are
their
cute,
own
though.
cultures and societies, and each group had a different interaction with the Pale King. One of the more receptive groups to the arrival of the Pale King were the mushrooms of the fungal wastes. These creatures were able to communicate with one another through one shared mind. The mushrooms viewed this shared mind as a strength, and they were kind of smug dickheads about it. Ultimately, the mushrooms wearily accepted the Pale King's rule, viewing his foresight as a shield to the dangers of the future. Another group living in the fungal wastes is the Mantis tribe.
Yeah, the mantises.
The Mantises have a rich cultural history reaching back to long before the birth of Hallownest. The Mantises are a proud tribe, believing in the importance of proving one's physical strength. The Mantises are fiercely territorial, but will show respect to those who display great power. These Fight Club enthusiasts were led by 4 powerful Mantis Lords, who I guess just kind of sat around waiting for outsiders to challenge
Yeah,
them.
wasn't there only 3?
The Mantis tribe had no interest in the Pale King's kingdom, but the two communities did come to a truce. In exchange for their independence from Hallownest, the Mantis tribe kept the beasts of Deepnest from invading Hallownest. Not sure why they didn't just go out the other exits from Deepnest, but whatever. I'm not an expert on border patrol. I don't work at ICE anymore. Let's move on to Deepnest. Now, many of the different tribes of Hallownest were kind enough to leave lore tablets behind, detailing pretty much everything we need to know about them.
Okay, so I did like basically, it seems implied that the Pale King just beat them up. I mean, you could just beat up the mantises and they just let you go. So did the Pale King just like absolutely obliterate their like boss fight and get them to come to a truce?
Leave lore tablets behind, detailing pretty much everything we need to know about them. Unfortunately, the bugs of Deepnest didn't do that. We know that the spiders of Deepnest had a monarchy because why not? Those are always good, right? Also, within Deepnest are a separate group of spiders that immigrated to Deepnest at some point in the past. This group was known as the Weavers, and they established their own culture and history within Deepnest.
This is about Hornets origins. Yeah, the Weavers. I don't. Why are they a monarchy? Just cause? Yeah, they live in the Citadel or whatever.
Known as the Weavers, and they established their own culture and history within Deepnest. They used looms of silk to weave stories, spells, and shields. One thing we know for sure about Deepnest is that they really didn't want anything to do with Hallownest.
Oh.
The struggles of Deepnest-Hallownest relations would become painfully clear as time goes on, but for right now, it seems like the two remained fairly isolated from one another. Another section of pre-Hallownest includes Greenpath. Now, as far as we can tell, the mushrooms, mantises, and spiders of Deepnest didn't worship any higher beings. There is this giant mushroom corpse in the fungal core, but I don't think this is a higher being. I mean, who the hell would want to worship a fat-ass mushroom?
Hey.
Fat-ass slugs? Now that's dope. The land we know as Greenpath was created by the higher being known as Un. Un used her great mind to dream the vegetation of Greenpath into the once barren caverns. Un's followers, the Mosskin, were also born out of Un's dream, making her their creator.
Why is everything born from a dream? Is it just a mythological term, like they dreamed them all up and then they were like created?
The Mosskin were also born out of Un's dream, making her their creator.
How are you supposed to find
Greenpath at
this
its
out?
height was actually much larger than we see in game. At one point, Greenpath stretched into both modern-day Queen's Garden and possibly Fog Canyon. Greenpath's citizens showed themselves to be a fairly developed society. They built a temple at the Lake of Un in order to worship her, and they even had their own line of defense, with Moss Knights showing proficiency in combat, using nails and shells as weapons. The Law of Un continued to remain in effect even after the Pale King arrived, but it seems like they allowed the king to establish a road through their lands, leading travelers to the heart of Hallownest. Hence the name Greenpath. Yeah, Team Cherry really racked their brains when naming this area, didn't they?
They're just bugs!
Next, we have the bees. And while there is no lore on how these bees can turn into fucking drills, or how they can ignore all known laws of aviation, we do know how they reacted to the Pale King.
I bet Hornet would love the bees. They look so fat and fuzzy and cute. And she loves cute things.
these bugs decided to seal their hive off from the rest of the world, with only patrol bees being able to enter and exit the hive. So yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And finally we have the
Actually, they have a very, you know, specific point. It is on the ends of their butts. Thank you.
the hive. So yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And finally we have the moth tribe. In-game, the only moth settlement is in the resting grounds, but the tribe might have also inhabited the Crystal Peak at one point. Now, as we all know, moths in real life are just complete assholes. As for the moths in Hollow Knight, well, it's a bit complicated. The moth race is described as being a rather pacifist group, with few ever choosing to take up a weapon. During the Pale King's reign, the moth race delved amongst dreams and the dead, displaying the importance of remembering those who have passed, as well as learning how to shape dreams themselves.
Oh, so this is where you get the dream nail from? The moths that are pacifists? What? Why does everybody dream? What the heck? I would expect the Green Path people to be the dreamers.
Similar to the Mothskin, the Moth tribe was born from a higher being known as the Radiance. The Radiance is described as being a light in which the Moth tribe basked. So she was basically a giant lamp to them.
Giant lamp!
Another important aspect about the Radiance is her ties to dreams.
Oh my god, they
and a
literally
substance
worship
known
a
as
lamp.
Essence. Essence are the remains of wishes and dreams, and are represented in-game by these dream catcher particle effects. Essence can take the form of whispering roots, as well as dream ghosts, both of which are memories taking root in the world. The Radiance appears to be a creature made of essence, but she isn't the only higher being to give off essence. Un has green particles, the Pale King has gray particles, and this sexy character named Grim gives off fiery red particles.
There's a Dracula
However, the Radiance
game?
appears to be the main god when it comes to dreams, even if other gods also dabble in the dream realm. Getting back to the Moth tribe, it is their interaction with the Pale King that we need to discuss. Basically, the Moths turn their backs on the Radiance completely, in order to worship the new light that had appeared, the Pale King's light.
That's true! In the beginning, they were like, the Pale King gives off a light so blinding it hurts to look at, right? Imagine you are like the hottest lamp around, and then someone showed up literally like born from a god with better light than you. I think I would be kind of pissed too.
So yeah, moths are assholes in this game too. With her tribe forsaking her, the Radiance became a forgotten memory, a remnant of the past, and a thing that's definitely not going to come up again later in this video. And so the Pale King's new kingdom was established, Hallownest. But there is one aspect of Hallownest that we need to discuss. Unfortunately, to better understand this, we're going to have to read some poetry.
There is so much poetry in
beyond,
this
they
game.
speak your name with reverence and regret. For none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch you taught, we changed. Base instincts were redeemed. A world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed.
See, like, out of context, I never understood, like, any of these lines. Like, don't get me wrong, I love poetry, but what? This is so vague. How do you construe anything from this? Okay, so this is talking about in Walls Beyond, they speak your name with reverence and regret. So that could be any god. For none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Okay, some barbaric bugs. Under palest watch, so the Pale King? You taught, we changed, base instincts were redeemed. A world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed. That's false. Don't lots of these bugs and beasts dream? Okay, but is this talking about the Pale King then? He like civilized them? He domesticated the bugs?
This is from a poem titled Elegy for Hallownest, written by Motomon the Teacher. The poem appears at the beginning of every playthrough, and hints at what the Pale King and his kingdom offered. Much of the land outside of Hallownest appears to be a wasteland, where bugs survive off of instinct, without the burden of mind. Hallownest somehow taught these bugs and tamed their savagery. Basically, the Pale King changed the instincts of his subjects and granted them higher thought. To get a better picture of this, let's look at two different characters, Boone and Tuck. These adorable panda bug things give us a clear display of Hallownest's effect. While both appear to be the same species of bug, Boone is dumb as a sack of rocks, struggling to string together words, while Tuck speaks fairly clearly. The main difference between these two characters is that while Boone lives outside of Hallownest, Tuck lives beneath the city's capital. Basically, it appears as though Hallownest is a literal holy ground that raises the intelligence of those who dwell within.
Wow.
The Pale King established a path, starting from the kingdom's entrance in King's Pass, winding through Greenpath and the fungal wastes, and finally ending at the massive capital at Hallownest's heart. We now know the capital city as the City of Tears, but that was likely not its original name. The rain that falls down onto the city from the blue lake above didn't begin until after the kingdom collapsed. So unless the capital was originally named by some edgy literature student,
calling out Team Cherry, edgy literature student right here, writes poems that we have to piece together, names things City of Tears.
The name City of Tears wouldn't have made much sense. The king's motivation for all this appears to have been his desire to be worshipped. The citizens of Hallownest believe that the Pale King created the world and everything in it. Shrines to the king can be found scattered throughout the kingdom, and king's idols were created and distributed to followers of the king. Despite the worship, the Pale King often kept himself hidden from his subjects, possibly to hide his blemishes. I mean, if you look at the size of the real Pale King to his statue in the ancient basin, the man is clearly overcompensating.
He's not
the
some
Pale King's
Warhammer
White Palace
emperor.
was also
He's
built
so
underneath
small.
the city, separating him from his subjects even more so. At the same time, certain powers became shunned in Hallownest, though we don't know for sure if the Pale King had anything to do with this. Lifeblood is a blue liquidy substance that leaves those who drink it feeling refreshed. However, the use of lifeblood was seen as a taboo, and those who used it were demonized as heretics. The use of soul for combat was also shunned.
In our
soul
game?
is a sort of life force in Hollow Knight that animates the bodies of living creatures. But some characters are able to control the soul of others to conjure powerful spirits. But aside from a few exceptions, no citizens of Hallownest ever used this power. However, the Pale King didn't rule alone. There was another higher being in the mix, a being known as the White Lady. The White Lady is a weird brute-like being that can
weird. The White Lady is weird. First qualifier, brute-like being.
Be found in the modern-day Queen's Gardens. She is encased in a strange cocoon, and we know very little about her. With as much exposition we get for the Pale King, there is next to nothing on the White Lady. But one thing we do know is that she likes to breed. Like a lot. The White Lady would often retreat to the Queen's Gardens, an area of land once controlled by the Mosskin. How exactly she walked around and actually went places is a lore question too deep for even my expertise. The White Lady is also known as a pale being, along with the Pale King. What exactly are pale beings? Well, we don't know for sure, but they seem to stand out even amongst higher beings, as being even more powerful. I know that's a little confusing, so let's try using an example. I'd say that regular higher beings are like a TP-Link Archer C7 AC1750 wireless dual-band gigabit router, while pale beings are like the Asus RT-AX88U AX6000 dual-band 8X gigabit Wi-Fi router. Under the
That was the easier explanation! What the heck? Can someone who speaks nerd tell me what that meant, huh? Yeah? Wanna translate that for me? Also, what does this have to do with this random pale lady liking to breed? Is she some, like, queen bee? Lives to have babies?
Pale King, Hallownest underwent a bit of an industrial revolution. He ordered the construction of the stagways, which were used to transport passengers and goods. The Forgotten Crossroads and the storerooms above the City of Tears were used to store goods that traveled along these stagways. The king also ordered the construction of the tramways, because literally no one is safe from the threat of automation.
There's a train?
A tram was built between the Forgotten Crossroads and the resting grounds. A second tram was built from the kingdom's edge across the ancient basin over to Deep Nest. And then a third tram was started in Deep Nest and attempted to go further into Deep Nest. Not sure how useful that would have been to the bugs of Hallownest, but whatever. The Pale King's a smart guy, I'm not gonna question him. But anyway, the Pale King's super smart plan to build a tram in Deep Nest ended up getting a few of his tram workers killed. The bugs of Deep Nest rejected the Pale King's attempt to build a tram in their territory, further cementing the poor relations shared between the two groups. Aside from convenient fast travel, regular pathways were also used to cart goods around the kingdom. From this was born probably one of the most important groups in Hallownest, and perhaps even all of fiction. An elusive guild of bugs, simply known as the Menderbugs, took to maintaining the various signs scattered throughout Hallownest.
Not the music change.
From the journal entry of one Menderbug, we can catch a glimpse into their ancient and unknowable minds.
Dear, dear diary, isn't life just the most beautiful thing? Fixing signs, mending posts, let them break, I say. I'm a better mender for all that repairing. I sometimes doubt there.
Wait! Isn't he the bug that like shows up if you break the first sign? Like repeatedly? If you keep like breaking it and you can come back and then he'll be there, right? And he's like, I love mending things, and you just keep breaking that sign and he just keeps doing it no matter what.
There's a single bug in all of Hallownest happier than me.
Another example of the Pale King's expanding infrastructure is the Crystal Peak. This area is filled with crystals that grow rapidly along walls, ceilings, and even the shells of certain bugs.
Is so fancy.
These crystals were considered valuable to the bugs of Hallownest, resulting in large-scale mining efforts. We don't actually see the crystals used anywhere else in Hallownest, but they are said to contain a sort of energy. The crystals are also said to sing, if you listen very carefully. In terms of military, Hallownest's first line of defense appeared to be a group simply known as the Five Great Knights. The members of this esteemed coalition were Ogrim, Hegemol, Zamir, Drya, and Isma. For being so important, most of the information about these knights has been lost to time. Ogrim is the knight we know the most about, since he is one of the few knights still alive during the events of the game. Ogrim expressed a great amount of loyalty towards the king, and he maybe had something going on with Isma, but we really don't know. Hegemol was known for his sense of humor and his soft-spoken voice, but at the same time, he was also dummy thick.
What?
Mysterious Zamir arrived in Hallownest from a serene land, bringing with her a collection of delicate flowers.
Oh, whoa.
At some point, she also got into a relationship with a mantis, but not just any mantis.
Scandalous.
A daughter of one of the mantis lords. So yeah, it seems like these great knights were slaying in more ways than one. All we really know about Drya is that she was fierce, caring, and wise. As for Isma, she was described as being kind. She also appears to be some sort of weird plant life form, but there's no information on where she's from or what her powers were. The Five Great Knights play an important role in the Champion's Call, the Knotted Grove, and the Battle of the Black Worm.
Is that something
I
should know about?
We have no idea what these events were or how they affected Hallownest,
Thank you
but
for
they
answering
sound
that.
cool nonetheless. During Hallownest's reign, there was another strange area that seemed to exist separate from the Pale King's rule. Carved out of the corpse of an ancient bug, an area called the Colosseum of Fools was constructed.
The Colosseum?
And it was a destination for warriors from outside Hallownest. The sole purpose for fighting in the Colosseum appeared to be simply for glory, with a mysterious figure known as the Lord Fool overseeing the combat. We don't know when the Colosseum was constructed or if the Pale King was involved, but one of his servants, the Pale Lurker, became a champion in the Colosseum, perhaps indicating the Pale King's approval. And finally, there was the Royal Waterways, where the fecal excrement of the kingdom was washed out into the fungal wastes. This area saw the rise of a species of parasite-like creatures called the Flukes. The Flukes spawned from the Fluke Marm, a giant monster with cavities in which tinier flukes live.
Oh my god.
There really isn't too much lore involved with the Flukes, but I do need to point out that the Fluke Marm is canonically a MILF.
What?
Like, that's not even debatable.
Alluring god
The sky is blue, 2 + 2 = 4, and we all want to fuck this thing.
We do not! What?
And so this was the kingdom of Hallownest at its height.
It's giving me
Hallownest was a
trypophobia.
vast kingdom connected by a network of stagways and tram stations. The bugs of Hallownest mourn their dead on the resting grounds,
I need
engaged
Hornet
in
to write
commerce
me a
using Geo,
bestiary.
the
I
de
don't
facto
trust this
currency of the
one.
region, and a thriving capital located in the middle of the kingdom. The Pale King had succeeded in crafting a full-blown society, but we all know there are pitfalls to living in a society. As the suspicious and knowledgeable hunter points out in his journal, the Pale King had created a population of weak and pathetic creatures. The bugs of Hallownest did not hunt for their own food and had become complacent with their comfort. This is even more obvious with the east wing of the capital. These greedy members of Hallownest's high society became complete cowards, obsessed with riches and plum from excess wealth. The bugs living in Hallownest Prime looked quite different than the instinctive simpletons they once were. Their savagery had been replaced with intelligence, and through that intellect, they gave the Pale King the devotion and service he desired. And while there were a few snags along the way, they were shining times for the king and his subjects. Resting at the threshold of Hallownest is a strange lore tablet, proclaiming Hallownest to be the last and only civilization. It calls Hallownest an eternal kingdom. This appears to have been the Pale King's goal, for Hallownest to stand against a wasted world as a final beacon for civilization.
Okay, but like, now that Silksong is out, we do know that is not technically true. There's like, Hallownest is like a teeny portion of the world, right? And there's many civilizations outside of it. Clearly that like all the characters have explored and been through, but apparently there is just so much of it that's a wasteland. Is the Citadel just like a like anomaly, and that they're also just a standing civilization that still exists despite being cursed or whatever? But Hallownest seems to think it's the last and only civilization. At the very least, maybe his hubris, I suppose?
And that was the Pale King's ultimate folly, to think that he could succeed where so many others had failed before. Long before the Pale Kings or the Barry Bensons of the world, the land of Hallownest was controlled by an ancient caste. Hints of Hallownest's history are littered throughout the land, with the most notable examples being the soul totems and arcane eggs. One sect of these ancient bugs didn't worship a god like the Pale King or any lord, but instead a dark and mysterious substance known as the Void.
Why would you do that? Why
Once
are they
also
so
tried
edgy?
to lay claim to the entire land of Hallownest, but they too failed. In his quest to conquer all of Hallownest, the Pale King had made an enemy long forgotten, an enemy that was about to be remembered.
The Radiance.
I mentioned earlier that the Moth tribe entirely forgot about the Radiance in order to worship the Pale King, but that isn't quite true. Memories of her still lingered, and hushed whispers of faith kept the Radiance alive. At the summit of the Crystal Peak, a location known as Hallownest Crown, a strange collection of glyphs can be found. Joining these glyphs is a statue of the Radiance, presiding over the kingdom below. This old summit is the sole standing shrine left to the Radiance. This was built in order to keep the memory of the Radiance alive.
So basically the Pale King is the new religion that's swept up, and so like the taboo religion is that's left over is the Radiance worshippers. But is it so like the gods survive because they're getting worshipped? So it's one of those things where you gotta clap for fairies. The harder you believe, the more they're alive. But this only causes the Radiance to get salty, because they remember everything that was stolen from them.
The Radiance's light began to appear in the dreams of Hallownest citizens. This light manifested itself in an infection that ravaged through the kingdom's tunnel.
Wait, the Radiance is the infection? I thought they just got a random plague.
Hey, I'm Meimi, and this is Hattie. If you want me to continue watching these videos, consider subscribing. Please and thank you. And now back to the video.
I thought they were just like very unlucky. Sorry, you guys are going to have a pandemic now.
Those infected would fall into a deep sleep and awaken with broken minds. Some of the lesser bugs tried to resist the Radiance's light, which only resulted in them being consumed by it even more so. Many infected bugs lost their wills and began attacking bugs that weren't infected. The infection also twisted the bodies of its hosts, causing them to bloat and occasionally develop orange cysts on their bodies.
Yucky!
For many victims, they were reverted back to their basic instincts, carrying out the duties they once fulfilled in life, but now as mindless slaves. Those caught up in the infection were linked into the Radiance's hive mind, allowing her to control their bodies if needed.
Wait, what? It's also a hive mind thing too? Man, I'm trying so hard not to ask about Silksong because now I'm curious, right? I'm like, Is it very different? I know, like, they're basically zombies. This is basically a zombie apocalypse. Because I know that there's, like, an infection and everything. I didn't know it was caused by the radiance. I just knew the radiance is, like, the true boss or whatever that you have to fight. But, like, you can also get controlled by the hive mind. They're just little hollow husks. And they're, like, parasitically being controlled from afar. Man, now I want to know if, like, I want to know if the Silk Song, like, threads is the same thing. Surely not. Surely there's a twist.
As the infection spread across Hallownest, many groups looked to solutions to fight off the Radiance's light. The gates to the City of Tears were closed in an attempt to keep the infection from reaching the city. The stagways were also shut down at some point, and many of the stags eventually died out.
The stags died out? What do you mean the stags died out? No, not our cute Oji-san stags. But also, I can't believe they had a lockdown before we had a lockdown. Did they predict the lockdown? Conspiracy.
But some took more proactive efforts against the infection. The scholars of the Soul Sanctum decided to harness the power of Soul in an attempt to fight the infection. This resulted in the deaths of hundreds of bugs, whose souls were sucked out and injected into the bodies of the scholars. Their goal was to achieve some kind of pure focus, which would somehow protect them from plagues of the mind. The scholars' leader, the Soul Master, was driven mad by the sheer power of Soul, and his entire sect failed to avoid infection.
Really?
But hey, at least they took as many innocent people down with them as they could.
Dang!
The Mantis tribe,
Sacrificed so many.
showing a stronger will than the common bug, were able to stave off the infection. However, one of the 4 Mantis Lords turned against his sisters. He and his followers took in the infection willingly, as it gave them more strength and courage.
Dude, it's
At
always
some
the
point during
guy.
all this,
Why is it always
the
the
Traitor
guy?
Lord and his followers were exiled from
They
the
want more
Mantis
power.
village, eventually taking up residence in the Queen's Gardens. The Traitor Lord's daughter ended up dying at some point.
No,
This is the same Mantis
This is
that was
so
in a
sad.
relationship with Zamir, one of the 5 Great Knights. But the Mantises rejected their union because of Zamir's outsideness. As a gamer, this type of prejudice is all too familiar, and honestly, it makes me sick.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Because of Zamir's outsideness.
Are they calling
As a
Zamir
gamer,
an...
Mantis that was in a relationship
Did they
with
just
Zamir,
call Zamir a gamer nerd? Is that what it is? He's ostracized because he's a
one
gamer?
of the 5 Great Knights. But the Mantises rejected their union because of Zamir's outsideness. As a gamer, this type of prejudice is all too familiar, and honestly, it makes me sick.
Whatever.
With the 5 Great Knights completely useless to fight against the infection, the Pale King devised his own scheme. A scheme involving a strange substance known as Void. As I mentioned earlier, the Pale King's White Palace was built in an area called the Ancient Basin, but his castle wasn't the only noteworthy thing down there. At the bottom of the Ancient Basin was the entrance to a pit known as the Abyss.
Literally an entryway
Within the
to
Abyss
hell?
was a lake composed of void. The Pale King realized that this void could be given form, as evidenced by an imprint of such deep within the Abyss, possibly left there by the ancient civilization that predated Hallownest. The Pale King devised a workshop in his palace, where he placed void in armor shells imbued with soul, creating servants known as King's Molds and Wing Molds. These void creatures were somehow imprinted with the desire of the Pale King, so that they would serve him.
Terrifying?
It isn't clear when the Pale King started making these creatures. There is evidence to imply that even common bugs were aware of King's Molds.
Are they
But
alive?
the point is, the Pale King turned
they're
to the void
homunculi?
in order to create another creature, one that he believed could contain the Radiance and her infection. He tried to create a pure vessel. The Radiance's infection needs its host to have a will and a mind in order to enslave it. A pure vessel would be a creature made of void designed to lack those features. The Pale King believed that by harnessing the void inside a pure vessel, he would be able to stop the infection and keep Hallownest lasting eternal. But his method for creating this so-called pure vessel was incredibly cruel. This is where the White Lady and her King Kong-sized libido come into play. These two higher beings engaged in a union of some kind, resulting in the creation of several eggs that were dropped down into the abyss. There, the void seeped into these eggs, corrupting the offspring of the Pale King and the White Lady. This act resulted in the creation of the vessels.
So lots of little
The
knights.
vessels are not technically considered to be alive, They are shells created from the Pale King and White Lady that have been
Why are they
filled with
not
a void.
alive?
Within each vessel is a shade,
Can't wake
a
up.
completely void being hidden behind the face of the vessel. Vessels are also non-gendered, I guess because they're dead or something.
How could they
I'm
be
not sure
dead
if
and
that's how
alive
that
at the
works,
same
but
time?
Whatever. I'm not an expert on these kinds of things. I don't work at ICE anymore. Thousands of vessels were created during this process, but only one was chosen as the pure vessel. This particular vessel, chosen by the Pale King, was deemed the Hollow Knight,
The
and was taken
original.
away to the White
The
Palace.
original Hollow Knight.
But I want to take a bit of a closer look at this part of the story. There are a number of questions and theories surrounding this moment that I really want to dig into.
What is this?
The big
What is
question
that
surrounding
scene?
this moment is, why was the Hollow Knight chosen over any other vessel? One common theory is that the Pale King took these vessels back to the White Palace and evaluated them using his giant collection of buzzsaws.
Why does he have so many
This theory is
buzzsaws?
probably the least
Are you
likely
kidding me?
explanation.
Do you have to go through
It
this
kinda
area to
exists
finish this
just to
game?
explain the buzzsaws, which is quite the mystery, I'll admit, but doesn't really mesh with the vessels very well.
What is this
How does being good at
platforming
Super
from
Meat
hell?
Boy prove that you are a worthy
Oh
vessel?
my god.
And while thinking about logistics in a game about magic bugs
There
is
is
never
no
a
way I
good
can
idea,
complete this game
how
if I have to
exactly
do
did
that.
the Pale King transfer these thousands of vessels
There's
to his
no
palace
way.
without characters like the Dung Defender finding out? So this means that the Pale King probably made his decision without taking any of the vessels out of the abyss. So how did the Pale King make his evaluation? I think the best explanation comes from a theory I originally heard from a user named Golden Flower Fan. Basically, the vessels were hatched down at the bottom of the abyss, and the first one to make it to the top was chosen by the Pale King.
Just
In memory
the
of this
first
event,
one?
we see vessels falling from above back down into the pit of the abyss. Perhaps these vessels weren't being cast down into the abyss, but fell while trying to escape out of it.
They're just bad
The
at
lore tablet
platforming.
outside the
Me
abyss
too.
appears to support this theory.
I would not
It
have made
reads,
it.
"Our pure vessel has ascended. Beyond lies only the refuse and regret of its creation. We shall enter that place no longer." This tablet was likely written right after the Hollow Knight was chosen, considering that is when the entrance to the abyss was sealed off.
Oh.
The tablet
how
proclaims
did our
that the
little
pure
knight
vessel
get
has
out?
ascended, or in other words, climbed out of the abyss. And while cut content should never be considered canon, I would just like to point out that an earlier version of this tablet, found in the game's code, was even more explicit about this. It read, "From below, our pure vessel has ascended." But how does making it to the top of the abyss first prove that the Hollow Knight is somehow a perfectly hollow vessel? Well, I think this whole concept might just be a misconception. What if the Hollow Knight wasn't any different from the other vessels? All the vessels were made in the exact same way after all. The idea that the Hollow Knight was
Survival of the
somehow
fittest?
more hollow than the other vessels comes from the fact that there were so many vessels created in the first place. If they only
This is
needed
like
one,
fish eggs.
then why create so goddamn many?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like Octomom on steroids.
No, this is like fish
Well,
eggs.
these are bugs we're talking about, so
You
it would
expect
make
half of them
sense
to
that
die?
multiple offspring would come from one egg. And it might have been a precaution to produce multiple vessels in hopes that at least one would be able to successfully escape the abyss.
How did our little
Now
knight
another explanation
survive?
could be that the Pale King just yeeted other vessels that made it to the top first, after determining that they weren't hollow,
No way!
which would better explain why so many were created.
He needed so many.
Ultimately, the exact details aren't super important, but I do find it interesting how many different
When your
interpretations
offspring doesn't
can
have
be
good
pulled from this
sparks.
part of the lore.
You gotta
After the
re-roll
Hollow
it.
Knight was chosen, the Pale King
You glue
sealed the
'em.
doorway to the abyss, leaving the discarded vessels to rot away in darkness. These actions were not taken lightly by the Pale King or the White Lady. Both participants expressed shame in what they did, but saw no other option to save the kingdom. But the vessels weren't the only poor saps sealed away in the abyss. There's also a lighthouse that was built on top of a naturally formed spire, its light shining down on an ocean of abyss below.
Oh.
Inside was one of the Pale King's
Wasn't
royal
that like the
retainers,
endgame area?
who was left in charge of keeping the lighthouse turned on. So this brave soul was willingly sealed in a dark and dangerous tomb for the rest of his life, just so he could not pull a lever. Well, at least he was living with purpose. With the abyss
Not
sealed and the
pull a
Hollow Knight
lever.
chosen, the Pale King's plan was beginning to come together. The Hollow Knight was raised and trained to prime form, causing it to grow several times its original size. We don't know exactly
Yeah,
why
how did
this
he get so
happened,
big?
but I
He's
guess the
much
Hollow
bigger
Knight is
than
just a
his dad.
grower and not a shower.
But if
we
you
know
think
that the
about it,
Hollow
his
Knight was
mom
trained
is
to
really
use a
big.
nail, But why was this even necessary? One possible explanation is that the Hollow Knight needed to protect itself in case an intruder tried to kill it. You know, like the player. Or perhaps this was important in the process of containing the Radiance. Unfortunately, the details of that are never fully explained. The Hollow Knight might have somehow focused the Radiance inside itself, but Team Cherry gives us no explanation of how that might have worked. But that still wasn't enough for the Pale King. Additional seals were needed in order to protect the Hollow Knight's physical body while the Radiance was trapped inside of it. To achieve this, the Pale King sought the help of 3 particular bugs who would later be known as the Dreamers: Lurien the Watcher, Motomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast.
Hera the Beast!
Lurien is definitely the most
Hera
mysterious of the
spotted.
3 Dreamers. He lived in the Watcher's Spire in the City of Tears. From there, Lurien watched over the city with his telescope. Lurien was a pretty big fan of the king, so it probably took little convincing for him to lie down for him. Lurien might also be tied to another strange incident that occurred in the City of Tears. Hidden on some of Lurien's lore tablets are images of jars, the same jars that can be found stockpiled in the Tower of Love.
Huh?
This building
That's
sits on the outskirts
crazy.
of the city, and is the
How
setting
you-
of one of the most
how do you
bizarre
connect this?
bosses in the game, the Collector.
The Collector!
The Collector is a void construct that appears to have been made from the same mold
He's the one
used
that
to
trapped
create
the
the
little
King's
buggies.
mold. But the Collector is unique because, well,
Good grief, he's naked!
The Collector
What?
stayed in the Tower of Love
None
with
of the
a
other
noble
bugs are
bug who
wearing
likely
clothes,
owned the establishment.
except for us.
In the tower, a number of bugs can be found captured in jars, implying that these two were tasked with collecting these creatures. However, the Collector somehow became obsessed with grubs, creating a map to keep track of grubs it captured in jars, as well as keeping a strange shrine displaying a grub in the style of the Vitruvian Man.
Don't you think
Eventually,
he's just
the
the
bug staying
ultimate
with the Collector
yandere?
decided to lock it inside the Tower of Love, and fled to the Queen's Gardens, where it died, likely due to overexposure to the void. Despite being locked up in the tower, the Collector is still spotted by the Hunter at some point, which either means this only happened recently, or the Hunter has been farting around in Hallownest for a long ass time. We have no idea what these creatures were trying to do. It's implied that the Collector was trying to preserve the creatures of Hallownest, perhaps trying to protect them from the spread of the infection, but we don't know where the Collector's obsession with grubs
so
originated,
sad, don't
and while
funny.
Lurien does seem connected to all of this, we don't know how involved he was with this operation, or what its end goal exactly was. Motomon the Teacher lived in the Teacher's Archives, a library built atop a lake of acid in the Fog Canyon. The lower half of her body consists of tentacles, making her
Oh.
a popular subject for the thriving Hollow Knight R34
No!
community.
Tell me there isn't
The
one.
archives and the Fog Canyon as a whole
There's a
are
game
also
about
filled with these
bugs, for
strange
God's
Metroid
sake.
knockoffs. These creatures are likely related to Monomon in some way. They could
The
be her live
jellyfish?
offspring, her test tube babies, or possibly even her shit. Motomon
Listen,
uses
does your
futuristic
shit
cathode ray
normally,
tube
like,
things to
move?
store information about Hallownest. Several terminals in the Teacher's Archive go into detail about the Pale King's plan to defeat the Radiance, indicating that Motomon had intimate knowledge of what she was taking part in. Finally, the Pale King sought the help of Hera the Beast, the Queen of Deep Nest.
Wait, she's
Now,
a
as I
queen of
mentioned earlier,
deepness?
relations between Hallownest and Deep Nest were kinda not great. Unlike the other two dreamers, Hera needed to be convinced in order to help the Pale King. Hera would eventually agree to become a dreamer in exchange for a child.
The
Pale King agreed,
child!
and the two engaged in a dalliance,
A
which is a fancy
dalliance?
way of saying they totally
No!
boned.
Hey,
The
hey,
White Lady
hey,
was
hey.
okay with this arrangement. In fact, she might have been watching from
Oi,
the closet.
oi.
The motive behind Hera's request is never
The
elaborated
Pale King
on,
is really a short
but
king.
it appears
He's
as though
always
the King
smaller
of
than his
Deep Nest
partners,
was
huh?
dead at this point. Hera was a common bug, so perhaps she desired the Pale King's pale seed so that her child could
Is
be
she
of high
common?
birth. The bargain
Really?
between Hera and the Pale King resulted in the birth of Hornet. She became known as the gendered child, because unlike the Pale King's other children, Hornet was not hollowed out by the Abyss. Hera and Hornet spent little time
that's
together,
true.
as Hera had to make good on her end
She
of the
wasn't
bargain.
thrown into the void.
And so the three dreamers
But does
were
she
put to
have
rest.
void in her? No,
Through
right?
their actions, a seal was
None?
placed over the black egg, prohibiting entrance into the chamber. These dreamers also had their own protection. At the base of Lurien's spire, the Watcher Knights guarded access to their master's body.
I guess that's true.
Motomon's body
Female
was
bugs
protected
usually
by a
eat
giant jellyfish
bigger, huh?
named Umu. On top of this, Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell
Oh,
with a mask
Quirrell's-
which would be required to break an additional seal she had placed over herself.
Quirrell
So she
works
basically
for her.
is double wrapping herself. As for Hera, we're not really sure what protected her, since it is never actually seen in-game. We don't know where this creature is hiding, but whoever it is, they really suck at their job. Now there appears to be one more element to the Pale King's plan, involving the Weavers. Hidden away in the Weaver's den is an incomplete seal of binding, woven from silk. This design prominently features the Hollow Knight's head, and can be found in the White Palace, as well as blocking the exit during the Hollow Knight fight. Silk spools created by the Weavers can be found in the Stag Station in Deep Nest, as well as the Stag Station next to the White Palace. These spools can also be found in the Pale King's workshop. We know that the Weavers were closely tied to Hera and Hornet, so their actions might have been a part of the deal between the Pale King and Hera. Once the Hollow Knight was ready, the Radiance was somehow channeled into the vessel,
Yeah,
which
like
was
how?
then placed inside of a giant black egg located in the Forgotten Crossroads. This egg was built to sustain the Hollow Knight, and itself appears to be fashioned from void. The Hollow Knight was chained up, and the entrance to the black
The
egg
poor
was locked
Hollow
behind
Knight,
a
he was
powerful
born to
seal
be
created by the
sacrificed.
three dreamers. Initially, this convoluted plan actually worked, and the infection was successfully contained. Memorials to the Hollow Knight and the Dreamers were erected in the City of Tears and the Resting Grounds. But this is the part of the story where things get a little bit hazy. By the time these statues were constructed, citizens had taken to writing on parchment woven from spider silk, which was all destroyed when water started
Oh, no.
pouring down onto the city. We don't know how long the Hollow Knight was able to completely contain the infection. Bugs from Dirtmouth used to go to the Temple of the Black Egg to pray, saying they felt at peace within the walls. But after a while, they stopped going, perhaps indicating that the infection was beginning to leak out again. The infectious air continued to seep through Halness
Oh,
for
no.
years, eventually even reaching the deepest parts of the kingdom.
Not full
As
quarantine.
it turns out, the Pale King's pure vessel wasn't quite so pure after all. The Hollow Knight had been tarnished by an idea instilled. While the game never explicitly tells us what that idea was, it does hint strongly at what it might be. Hidden away in the White Palace is a memory showing the Hollow Knight and the Pale King
He's
sharing
such
a
little
moment.
guy.
The Hollow Knight might have developed a parental bond to the Pale King, and who could blame it?
He
The
just
Pale King is a
wanted
pretty great dad
love.
after all. You know, if you ignore the infanticide and everything.
He had
Remember
one
those
moment
smug
with
mushroom
his
dickheads?
dad.
Well, it turns out their trust in the Pale King was a complete mistake. That shared mind isn't looking too good now, is it? In the fungal core, the corpse of a giant mushroom lies dormant. Its final thoughts were, "Pale worm, what good to see a demise unavoidable?"
See?
This could imply that the Pale King
You
always
always
knew
knew
that
it
his
was
kingdom was
doomed.
doomed. All he could do was delay the inevitable. This is likely the moment when Halnest, as it once was, entirely collapsed. The Hollow Knight had not completely stopped the infection, and while it may have taken a while, Halnest was eventually brought low. It's at this point that characters and areas begin to resemble as we know them in-game. When it became
How
clear that
dare
the Hollow
you
Knight was
have
not able to contain the
feelings.
Radiance,
Hollow
the
Knight,
Pale
how
King
dare
resorted to his final
he
plan.
wish for
He
love.
fucked off, hiding himself, his White Palace,
Oh my
and
gosh,
his Pale
what?
Court in the Dream World. At this point,
He
all of the
runs
furniture in
away?
the palace was covered under white sheets, similar to how people in the real world cover their furniture while away on long trips. The palace was also completely covered with thorns and buzzsaws, similar to how people in the real world cover their houses with thorns,
With thorns and
and buzzsaws.
buzzsaws, yeah.
The Pale King would
Common
eventually
trap.
pass away while sitting on his throne in the White Palace. There's no confirmation on what
Wait, then like he just dies? He goes on vacation forever and dies? He doesn't even like live a good life? He doesn't have go on vacation? Excuse me? Okay, but I was also gonna say like, you know, like in Sleeping Beauty, when she sleeps for 100 years and then all the thorns cover, you know, like the area to kind of protect it from being tampered. Because why would you want your, you know, place to be tampered with when you could have it covered with lots of thorns instead?
killed him, but there are a few things to consider. The throne room is incredibly dark compared to the rest of the palace, and the particle effects and ambient track in this room are identical to that of the Abyss. all of the king's molds surrounding the Pale King are dead.
Oh.
The ancient basin itself also has become stained with the presence of
Void kills
as
him?
it can be seen as high as the rundown elevator shaft leading back to the city. Remember that bug that was sealed away in the abyss to make sure the lighthouse wasn't turned off? Well, the lighthouse was turned off.
It was turned off.
I guess that whole living with purpose thing is a crock of shit after all. It seems as though the Sea of Void itself actually convinced this bug to betray his king and turn off the lighthouse.
He turned it off?
Now I know what you're thinking.
Shouldn't we have just...
Exactly how conscious is the
Shouldn't we
void?
have just, like, turned
Is
it
the
on
void
forever
able
and
to
sealed
think
it
for
off?
itself? Can it form strategies? Does it host a podcast? Well, according to this Chozo statue ripoff, the void is powerful, but not unified. So while it can thrash around at things that come near it, or call out in unison to turn off a light, it's not a single conscious being. Getting back to the Pale
When you're
King,
scared of the
one
dark,
could
this
argue
is what
that
you
the
mean.
void might have played a role in his ultimate demise, and I've argued that viewpoint in the past. But we have to remember that there isn't enough evidence to know for sure. As an expert lawyer and a good friend of mine, Johnny Cochran, once said, "Any evidence that the void was involved in the Pale King's death is circumstantial."
Yeah.
My name is Johnny Cochran. Just above the White Palace, the bugs in the City of Tears weren't faring much better. Even if we ignore the fact that the infection was still around, there were other issues that helped lead to the city's downfall. Due to the gates being sealed, some bugs resorted to cannibalism in order to avoid starvation.
Ew.
And there's also that metric fuckton of corpses lining the walls of the Soul Sanctum. When all was said and done, the only citizen left standing is Eternal Emelita,
Who?
who just laughs her ass off about it like she's a fucking Dark Souls character.
Okay, but
The
like...
White Lady ends up in a cocoon deep
You
within
might
the
as well go
Queen's
insane if
gardens.
everyone's dead.
She decided to place bindings on herself in order to keep her from spreading her seed.
Why?
She claims that this is because of the shame she feels in helping
she feels
the
like
Pale
she
King
shouldn't
create
make
the
more
vessels.
children?
But honestly, it's probably just her kink. The White Lady also diminished her power, possibly as a way to keep herself hidden from unwanted visitors. Outside her cocoon, Drya stood guard, protecting her queen from the violent traitor mantises. Drya is eventually killed off by these bugs, which is actually pretty pathetic if you think about it.
What?
I mean, we're talking like the Netgear
not this
WPN824N N150 wireless router
Excuse
pathetic.
me?
Speaking of great knights dying pathetically,
Someone else
let's
speak
move on to
nerd.
Hagemel. Hagemel
I'm
held
sorry,
the city
I'm-
crest, a key used to
Okay, but like, why was it pathetic? Why is it pathetic that she lost to a bunch of mantises? It's not as if you guys who play this game have never lost to a bunch of mantises.
Let's move on to Hagemel. Hagemel held the city crest, a key used to open one of the gates to the City of Tears. At some point, Hagemel's armor shell was stolen by a maggot. Now, maggots were generally
Oh my
looked
God,
down
there's
upon and
actually
forced to do
maggots!
menial labor.
Wow,
They were
they're
incredibly
second-class
weak
citizens.
and basically deserved all of the discrimination they got. But this one
Discrimination is
maggot
okay.
decided to turn the tide, so he stole Hagemel's shell so that he could defend his downtrodden brothers. His
Maggot
actions weren't
uprising?
motivated by the infection, but instead was the result of how hierarchical caste systems will always lead to revolution from the working
I
class,
see.
and that true freedom
Communism.
can only be achieved blah blah blah, capitalism is bad, subscribe to my Patreon. Ogra moved to the Royal Waterways and started living in shit,
I was gonna
changing
say,
his
where's the
name to
Union?
Dung Defender. Now I love
But I
wallowing
don't
in
want to
shit
be
as much
represented
as
by
the next guy,
maggots.
but you
I think
have
I'd
to
rather
really
just
love
live
shit
in
to
that
put up with living with the
capitalism.
fleas. The Dung Defender kept an unwavering sense of duty and loyalty to the king, and love for his fellow knights. So much so that he made shit statues of them. How nice.
Wait, literally? Oh, because
Ogrim
he's a
acted as the
dung.
defender of the
'Cause
pipeways,
he's a
as
dung
well as Isma's
defender.
Grove.
Is
A
it
section
just
of the Royal Waterways
is it
became
actually
filled with acid, and in the
poo?
middle of it all rests Isma's corpse, which has been overcome by plant life. Isma is likely the one responsible for this acid blight, but we have no idea what happened to her. Hornet's whereabouts during this time are fairly mysterious. We know that she departed Deep Nest and didn't return until the events of the game.
Yeah.
At some point,
why
she
wasn't he
took to guarding
protecting it?
Halnest from intruding warriors, as well as the cast-off shell in the Kingdom's Edge. Despite the Kingdom's woes at large, fortunately this fate did not befall one of the fandom's favorite characters. The Menderbugs continued to fix the broken signs and wayposts of
Menderbugs are
Halnest.
safe.
From a diary entry, we can see that one Menderbug in particular had found himself on the precipice of a long and loving relationship.
Hello again, diary. Not long now until the next Minder Bash.
for us stealthy types.
What?
We're a riotous bunch when we get together.
What is this
And Vinderberry
fanfic?
kept flashing me that smile. It might be time to muster my courage and act on
Excuse
it.
me, is this
I love my
necessary?
home
Is this
and my life, but
canon to the
sharing
lore?
it with another? Why, that'd be the berry on top.
Greenpath also underwent some changes during this time. The Mosskin were waiting for Un's call, which would bring them back into the dream they were originally born from. But for some reason, Un's strength deteriorated. We don't know why this happened exactly. Was it due to the White Lady claiming part of her kingdom? Was it somehow due to the infection? Some Mosskin believe that Un went into hiding, but it appears as though Un is, in fact, calling to her children. But many of the Mosskin are unable to hear her call. Instead, many Mosskin seem to have taken the Radiance's infection into their leaves, which might explain why Greenpath became
don't think they did it
overgrown
on
with
purpose,
vegetation
okay?
despite Un's deteriorating powers. Mossy vagabonds even openly chose to forsake Un and worship the Radiance.
How dare they?
Another
Heretics.
tribe to be screwed over by the Radiance is the Hive, which fell to the infection after the death of their leader, Hive Queen Vespa. But it appears as though this had little effect on their civilization. The Radiance's hive mind was already familiar to the bees, since the Hive probably operated under something similar already. So in other words, the Hive probably made out the best in this whole situation.
The bees are
Let's turn
fine.
our attention back
They're
to the
not
moths.
infected.
After all,
They're just
it's their
willingly
god that keeps killing everybody.
rude.
Well, the moth tribe didn't fare too well, actually, as pretty much the entire tribe died out. The only known survivor is the Seer.
Oof.
Despite the loss of her tribe, the Seer continued to tend to the graves in the resting grounds, while also waiting the arrival of the Wielder, a mysterious being that her tribe has dreamt of for a while. In the Kingdom's Edge, the land became covered in ash melting off of the worm's decomposing corpse.
Disgusting.
The Colosseum of Fools continued
Oh
to
my
thrive.
God, get that damn
the
stuff
Lord
outta
Fool
here.
passed away at some point, but nobody really seems to notice or even care. The fools inside the Colosseum were infected, but still seem to have maintained control over themselves. It seems possible that these bugs took in the infection willingly, similar to the Traitor Lord and his followers. This would have given them an edge in combat, similar to using steroids,
Oh
but
my
without
God.
the whole shrinking testicles thing. However, even the Traitor Lord and his followers went mad, so what makes these fools any more special? As for the Pale King's champion, the Pale Lurker, well, she just went the normal kind of insane. There appears to have been another unforeseen event with the Pale King's plan. When the Hollow Knight was originally chosen, the door to the Abyss was sealed, trapping the discarded vessels within. But apparently, some vessels didn't get the memo. Vessel corpses can be found littered throughout the kingdom. There's one in the Ancient Basin, one in Greenpath, and several trapped in Nosk's lair in Deep Nest. Another vessel that escaped from the Abyss is the player character, the Knight. The exact details on how the vessels escaped the Abyss is unclear. There are indications that they might have slipped into Deep Nest through some old passageway, given void influences in part of the area, and all the corpses found in Nosk's lair. At some point, all entrances to Hollow Nest were closed off, with the old well and Earthmouth being the only way to sneak back in. Despite this, several people have wormed their way into the kingdom, with few ever returning.
Wormed their way.
Characters like Relic Seeker Lem seemed content to just pillage artifacts from the ruined kingdom, but other bugs seemed interested in something greater. In the Howling Cliffs rests the corpse of a member of the Grim Troop. The task of this bug appears to have been to seek out Hallownest, so that the troop might be summoned to the kingdom in the future. The Grim Troop are basically a group of bugs that serve a higher being known as the Nightmare Heart. The troop keeps the heart alive by feeding on the nightmares of fallen kingdoms. This process also involves sacrificing the troop master to his own child because, hey, look at this cool ass boss battle. Another
Isn't
important
that
group
just
that
how
traveled to
bugs are?
Hallownest are the God Seekers.
You know,
After being
mantises
abandoned by
eat each
their
other
old gods, the
for
gods of thunder
sustenance.
and the gods of rain, these bugs left their home in the land of storms, seeking out a new god to worship. The God Seekers look to gods to save them from their own silent mind.
Huh?
While traveling through the wastelands,
Silent
the
mind?
God Seekers
Just have
constructed
some
devices
imagination.
called God
Just think.
Tuners, which helped them seek out new gods. Through this device, they were able to detect the lingering power of the Pale King and find their way to Hallownest. When they arrived, however, the God Seeker was forced into hibernation. She was encased in a strange sarcophagus-like cocoon, which was itself chained up with a lock. It's not clear how this forced hibernation worked, seeing as the cocoon appears to have been made by the God Seeker herself. As for who put the cocoon in chains, I think the most likely candidate is the Dung Defender, considering how the Godseeker's cocoon is found in the junk pit in the waterways, an area the Dung Defender has tasked himself with protecting. This was the general picture of Hallownest after the Hollow Knight was sealed inside the Temple of the Black Egg. The kingdom was stuck in a kind of stasis, with the Pale King civilization destroyed, and the Radiants unable to break free from the chains.
About half an hour ago.
The Pale King was rebelling against nature, trying to keep his work standing indefinitely. The stasis over Hallownest held for an age. How long is that exactly? Well, we have no idea. As I'm sure you've noticed, there really isn't a timeline for anything that happens in this game. We also have no idea how long any of these bugs can actually live. Elderbug wasn't around to see the stagways open, but we know several other characters were, implying that Elderbug is probably one of the youngest characters in the whole game.
No way!
But this stasis over Hallownest wasn't going to last forever. At some point, the Radiance erupted out of the Hollow Knight, cracking its shell and releasing a loud and powerful roar. The amount of infection leaking out of the Hollow Knight became even greater. The many corpses that lined the roads and cities of the kingdom sprang to life with the amplified power of the infection. This strengthened infection prompted the departure of the Weavers back to their old home.
Yeah,
now this old home might actually be Farloom, the kingdom in which Hollow Knight Silksong takes place. But the amount of knowledge we have about Silksong right now is pathetic, so I'm not saying that's confirmed or anything.
We know now!
This is also around the time that Quirrell arrives back in Hallownest. His memory of Motomon appears to have been clouded due to his time outside of Hallownest. These events are depicted in the Quirrell prequel comic, which also shows an image of the Hollow Knight with a pre-cracked shell. This could mean that Quirrell's arrival happens roughly the same time the Hollow Knight's shell cracks. At around the same time Quirrell arrives in Hallownest, we also see the arrival of the player character, who is commonly referred to as the Knight. The Knight was one of the lucky vessels that was able to make its way out of the abyss. Somehow the Knight ended up venturing beyond Hallownest and into the wilds beyond. It's implied that the Knight was called to Hallownest by either the sealed Hollow Knight or the Radiants within. Regardless, once the Knight shows up and yeets itself off this cliff, the actual game of Hollow Knight finally begins.
I'm so lost. Okay, so does the Hollow Knight just crack randomly because just like time has gone by, or just because he keeps thinking about his dad and that somehow makes him impure because he has feelings and you know that's not allowed? Huh? So at some point it just cracks and more infection leaks out. There's a lot of things in between that I'm like, dude, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know how anyone else who has never played this game would ever follow. I don't know how 90% of this is like obvious to anyone even playing the game. Huh? I'm just gonna go with it. Just go with the flow. Okay, sure.
Now, there's a lot of details we could get into. Hallownest is full of NPCs and bosses, each with their own stories to tell. But to be honest, I don't think we need to go through all of them, since their stories are relatively straightforward. For example, let's look at the Brooding Moloch. So why is the Brooding Moloch brooding? Because all its friends are dead.
Oh.
And there you go. That's the lore for the Brooding Moloch. Also, it's the only character in the game with a visible asshole.
What?
Now, did you really need me to explain that to you? Probably not. So instead, I'm just going to talk about the interactions relating to Hollow Knight's main story.
Wow,
the
imagine
Knight
being
is
able to
eventually
pogo that
noticed by
well.
Hornet, who lures it deep into Greenpath. There, Hornet attempts to kill the Knight, claiming that she knows what it would try to do. At this point, Hornet views the Knight as being too weak. After the fight, Hornet can be found in the City of Tears, next to the statue of the Hollow Knight. Hornet mentions that the Knight has gained a resilience, due to the time it spent in the void beyond Hallownest.
Yeah, what
this
does that
could be
mean?
referring to the fact that some of those who leave Hallownest lose their memories, meaning the Knight would have no memories of its own tragic conception. Hornet tells the Knight that if it seeks to continue the stasis that keeps Hallownest standing, it must seek the Graven Ash, which is referring to the Kingdom's Edge. At this moment, Hornet sees the Knight as a possible replacement for the Hollow Knight. Basically, the Knight could break the seals that keep the Hollow Knight locked away, defeat the Hollow Knight, and contain the infection itself. It's at this point that I should mention that Hollow Knight actually has 5 different endings, because of course it would. I'm going to be explaining each of these endings in this video, as they each give us a different glimpse into the mechanics of Hollow Knight's world. Now, to get the easiest ending to Hollow Knight, Hornet's instructions to go to the Kingdom's Edge can be ignored completely. If the knight stumbles upon the resting grounds, the three dreamers will appear and cast the knight into the dream realm. There, Seer will come to the knight's rescue and grant it the Dream Nail, a special blade that can tear the veil between the real world and the dream world. With the Dream Nail, the knight can venture to the resting places of the three dreamers, curb stomp their asses, and unlock the entrance to the Black Egg. Inside the egg, the knight finds the Hollow Knight chained up, silently watching over it. Once the chains are broken, the Hollow Knight screams with that familiar Radiance roar and pursues the knight.
So he's
As the fight
infected
progresses,
too?
the Hollow Knight starts trying to kill itself, Coral style. But then the Radiance starts using the Hollow Knight's body to perform her own attacks.
Oh,
Once
I
defeated,
see.
the Hollow Knight begins to spew infection all over the place. The knight can then focus the infection into itself. This results in the first ending of the game, called Hollow Knight.
Roll
In this ending,
credits.
the knight usurps the Hollow Knight, prolonging the stasis over Hallownest. New chains and bindings appear out of fuck if I know, and contain the knight, and a new seal is placed over the entrance to the Black Egg. Now there is one giant question looming over this ending. Can the knight actually contain the infection indefinitely? Or
'Cause
will the
he's
Radiance still
hollow,
manage to
right?
break free one
He's
day?
actually hollow.
Before we answer this question,
Does it
let's look at some
reverse
of the
any of
other
the
events
other
that can transpire while
infections?
playing the game. If the player chooses to go to Kingdom's Edge, Hornet will challenge the knight one last time as a final test of strength. After her defeat, Hornet allows the knight to access the cast-off shell, where the Pale King was originally hatched. By interacting with this egg, the knight's shell is marked with the king's brand, technically making the knight the new ruler of Hallownest. With the king's brand, the knight can now open the entrance to the
ruler?
abyss and discover the
I
place
guess
of its
he's
birth.
the child.
When leaving the abyss, the knight can encounter Hornet again, where for the first time, Hornet suggests that there are actually two outcomes the knight can enact. She tells the knight that it can either prolong Hallownest's stasis, or face the heart of the kingdom's infection. Within the knight, Hornet sees a chance for change. Instead of just replacing the Hollow Knight, Hornet believes that it may be possible to get rid of the infection completely by using the void inside of the knight. After visiting the abyss and obtaining the Shade Cloak, the knight is capable of reaching the White Lady, hidden away in the Queen's gardens.
You have
The
to
White
kill her
Lady tells the
too?
knight that she has been awaiting a vessel to accept a gift, that gift being one half of a charm called the King's Soul, which she claims will give the knight more power. The White Lady goes on to explain that she can feel the weakening of the Hollow Knight within her roots. She tells the knight that it is free of the blemishes that made the Hollow Knight a flawed vessel.
Dude.
From this dialogue, it is
imagine being
implied
called
that the knight
flawed.
truly is a pure vessel, capable of containing the radiance successfully. But it's not quite that simple, so we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper into this. Basically, we're gonna need to answer a simple question. What exactly does it mean to be a Hollow Knight? Despite the White Lady's words, we have a number of instances where the characters and item descriptions mention that the knight has a will, and maybe even a mind.
Yeah.
But from the Pale
Like
King's
you meet
dialogue
so
when
many people
describing
and you
the Hollow
help
Knight,
them.
it is stated that a pure vessel has no mind or will. So is the White Lady wrong? Or maybe even lying? Her eyes have been clouded by time, and she can be tricked into thinking that Ogrim is in the room when the knight is wearing the Defender's Crest charm. She also thinks that Drya is still alive, which,
No.
so maybe the White Lady is just senile.
Just
My problem with that
dementia.
theory is that the White Lady states that the vessels stand out to her clearly in a misted world, due to them being her spawn. She also questions whether or not the knight sought her aid, which would imply that the knight must have some kind of will. So for whatever reason, the White Lady thinks the knight is still capable of containing the radiance, even if it's still able to make decisions. After all,
Don't
the
they
Hollow
all
Knight
make
was considered
decisions?
pure, but they still taught it how to wield a fucking sword.
Yeah.
I mean, if the knight were truly and completely hollow in a literal sense, it probably shouldn't even be able to walk, or draw a map, or open a goddamn bank account.
Hey, we got
In
scammed into
short,
that one.
this whole concept of being hollow is so abstract and hard to define, I don't really feel comfortable giving a solid answer on whether or not the knight is or isn't truly hollow. And
The
I think
knight
the game
had
leaves room
will
open
before
for
we met
other
him, though.
interpretations. Of
'Cause
course,
the
the White
knight-
Lady's gift is
Right? Like the knight, we are told he somehow escaped the abyss on his own and survived despite all the other vessels dying out there, and then traveled in the wastelands outside of the kingdom before being called back to the kingdom for some reason. And we don't really know what his will is, this entire time, since it's up to us to choose the ending, I suppose. But that, like, implies a will. Unless you're just wandering around lost.
Useless without the other half of the King's soul. In order to reach it, however, the knight must travel to the White Palace, locked inside the body of a king's mold. In order to bypass the seal, the knight must use a fully awakened dream nail. It can do this by bringing
This is so
1800
complicated.
essence to the seer, allowing her to sharpen the weapon's blade. If the knight does this, the seer remarks that the knight truly is the wielder that her tribe has been dreaming of. There's no explicit reason why the Moth tribe was dreaming about this supposed wielder so much, but it seems like they believe the wielder would wash away the crimes the Moth tribe committed by turning their backs on the Radiants.
Okay,
seer
but
seems
this
to know that-
this radio is kind of a piece of shit. Like, really, I feel like I would have gone and, like, Oshi Hen too if my god was a radiance that was only a god because it was so bright, and the Pale King came over and gave us civilization and higher thought and sentience and order and civilization. I probably would have switched too. The radiance, like, showed their colors by being salty and infecting the world, so I don't know. The Moths were, like, kind of just getting their eyes open here, but unfortunately the radiance was so awful that they doomed the entire land in their saltiness.
But the knight might kill the Radiants, and she seems accepting of it, ready for her and her tribe to disappear and be forgotten forever. With the awoken dream nail in hand, the knight can travel to the Pale King's refuge and locate the other half of the King's Soul charm. When equipped, the King's Soul provides a never-ending supply of soul, making it almost useful if it weren't for the insanely high cost of the charm, and the painfully slow rate at which it increases, and the fact that the charm will get replaced in about 5 minutes after you get it. The King's Soul charm itself symbolizes the union between two higher beings.
What a bait.
To me, this implies that the King's Soul is a representation of a vessel, which also was created by the union of two higher beings.
Excuse me.
With the King's Soul in their inventory,
It's a
the knight now
metaphorical
gains
union.
access to an area in the abyss called the Birthplace. In this massive pile of vessel shells, the knight can find a giant egg. Dream nailing the egg allows the knight to access its own memory when it was cast down into the abyss. From viewing that memory, the King's Soul charm is replaced with the Void Heart charm. The recollection of this event
That was a real event? That was like freaking Mufasa, right? Did the Hollow Knight actually leave the little knight behind like that? And he fell down? That was like his past? Long live the king? And then he like isn't hollow anyway and gets his like butt beat up later on?
and allows the knight to come to terms with the void inside itself. Once the knight has the Void Heart, the shades in the abyss no longer attack it, and that strange creature that gives the knight the Shade Cloak calls it the Lord of Shades. In other words, the knight has now bound the once fragmented void under its own will, allowing it to control the void in a powerful new way. With the
So you
union
can
of the
fight with
void, the
Void?
Pale King, and the White Lady, the knight has gained a strength before unseen. It is with this charm that 2 additional endings become unlocked. Hornet will now be standing outside of the Black Egg, offering to help the knight should the opportunity arrive. Midway through the fight with the Hollow Knight, Hornet rushes into battle, subduing
go,
the Hollow Knight
Hornet!
and piercing its shell. It's at this point that the knight is given the perfect opportunity to enter into the mind of its sibling, fighting the source of the infection head on, and finally putting an end to the Radiance's tyranny. Or it can just stand there and let Hornet get knocked unconscious. If the knight finishes off the Hollow Knight as usual, the sealed sibling ending occurs. Basically, it's the same as the Hollow Knight ending, but now Hornet is
But
in
now
the
you
room
doomed
too,
Hornet too,
and her
how dare
face
you!
appears on the door of the Black Egg. It's not clear what exactly this means for Hallownest. This might imply that Hornet is now a dreamer, but she's inside the temple, meaning that no one can actually get in there to kill her should the knight ever start leaking infection. At the same time, Hornet mentions that the bindings of the Black Egg would drain her, so she's probably just going to die anyway, right?
Rip.
Generally, people consider this to be one of the worst endings, but it's worth pointing out that Team Cherry doesn't support any one ending as being the true ending.
Some are
Each
just
ending is
truer than
canonical in
others.
its own right, and honestly, this ending isn't the worst. At least the Knight and Hornet will get to spend some quality time together.
Before they
If the
die?
Knight does dream nail the Hollow Knight, it will be taken to an arena where it can finally fight the Radiance head on. But the Knight isn't alone, as the other shades from the Abyss will appear in order to help corner the Radiance. Eventually the Radiance gets trapped in the tendrils of the Void. The knight bitch slaps her a couple times, and then the radiance
As
is
she
consumed
deserves.
into the darkness. The black egg then appears to turn to shadows and the void seeps down into
Oh,
the
this
ground.
is creepy.
Hornet awakens to find the knight's broken shell lying on the floor. We get one final shot of the shades in the abyss going to rest, and the game is over.
What?
This ending is called the Dream No More ending.
We
The radiance is
sacrificed
gone,
ourselves?
and Halonest is finally free from her infection.
Where's
Now I think it's
Knight?
fair to ask a few questions about how the Dream No More ending comes about. When the Hollow Knight was initially chosen to become the pure vessel, the abyss was sealed up and the rest of the vessels were left to rot away. But somehow vessels ended up outside of the abyss, and then one of those vessels was used to replace the Hollow Knight. Exactly how much of this operation was planned, if at all? The White Lady was waiting for a vessel. Did she have any communication with Hornet? Hornet was guarding the King's brand, the only way for a vessel to enter the abyss. How did she know it was necessary to guard the King's brand from weaker vessels? Hell, if the vessels did escape the abyss by themselves, wouldn't it be pointless to guard the King's brand, since the vessels could just creep back into the abyss the same way? I'm not going to provide any good answers to these questions,
Let's not
because God
think
forbid
about
I answer
that.
anything in this entire video. But I do want to point out that no plans to actually produce the Dream No More ending are explicitly stated in-game. So we can only speculate as to whether or not the White Lady or Hornet, or maybe even the Pale King, knew that they could defeat the Radiance by creating a Lord of Shades, like the Knight. Regardless, the next two endings were definitely not planned.
Huh?
In fact, the last two endings that were added in the Godmaster update almost feel out of place. The Godseekers
added, like,
basically hijack
DLC?
everything to the point where you don't even have to enter the Temple of the Black Egg to beat the game. That's like beating Mario Bros without ever seeing Bowser.
You
But
get
on
to
the other
choose it
hand,
canonically?
the Godmaster endings basically reinforce that Halonest does not exist in a vacuum, which can help the world of Hollow Knight feel more real. Because what else is reality but just a bunch of random chaotic stuff happening all the time? If the Knight finds the Godseeker in the Junk Pit, it will be able to enter her mind and refight all the bosses in the game. This is part of the Godseeker's ritual. They basically attune to the resonance of gods through ritual combat. This allows them to ascend their minds
Ritual
higher
combat?
and eventually, through the use of godly focus, achieve communication with the god sleeping in Halonest's heart, the Radiance. Now I know what
You
you're
get to talk
thinking.
to him?
That's a pretty convoluted little
Yeah,
religious
what
practice
the-
they have going on here. What's next? Are they going to start measuring the Knight's Theon levels? It's pretty complicated, but the point is, these Godseekers have some serious capabilities to fuck things up in Halonest, as we're about to see. As the Knight makes it further and further through the four Pantheons, the Godseekers get closer and closer to making contact with the Radiance, locked away inside the Hollow Knight. At the end of the fourth Pantheon, the Radiance makes herself aware in this strange reunion cutscene between the vessels. But she isn't the only one to make an appearance. The Void itself appears to go on the attack, rising up to meet the Radiance's call.
Oh.
It's at this point that the final challenge, the Pantheon of Halonest, becomes available. The Godseeker finally acknowledges the Knight as being more than just a simple cringer, and they begin to watch the Knight more intently. After defeating like a bazillion bosses in the final Pantheon, the Knight finally comes face to face with the Absolute Radiance,
Isn't
a
this just
stronger, more
masochist
enhanced
that
version
wanted
of
an
the
even
game's
harder
final
game?
boss. Finally, the stage is set. After roughly 40 minutes of intense agony and tedious boss battles, the Knight has finally reached the ultimate enemy, responsible for the destruction of Halonest. Truly, this will be a battle for the ages. But first, let's check in on our old
Oh
pal
my
Menderbug.
god!
As
What's
it turns
wrong
out,
with
he's still
Menderbug?
alive when the
What do
Knight
you
arrives
mean?
at Halonest, and he's still fulfilling his duty
What
after
is he
all this
mending
time.
at this point?
Let's take one last look at his diary.
Excuse me. Why is
My
he
lovely
writing his
diary.
fanfic?
Someone's
huh?
gone and broke my favorite sign, right there at the top of the crossroads.
Why is he suddenly
Keeps
British?
happening too. But you know,
Why is he
I
British?
just can't get mad about it. I should be thanking them, really. More chances to fix that beautiful, complex sign.
The
And
one
I've
that I
stocked up
break
on
every
spare
single time?
parts, so I've no fear it'll ever stay broken for long.
Unfortunately, the only way to ever read the Menderbug's diary is to kill him in cold blood. I'm not sure why Team Cherry thought this was necessary, but the general consensus on Reddit is that they are bloodthirsty warmongers,
could you?
so it checks
Are any
out.
of us
But
safe?
at least Menderbug's last moments will be spent fixing one of his favorite signs in the
can't
Forgotten
kill him!
Crossroads.
Does he
It's
stay
comforting to think that his
dead?
final seconds of consciousness were spent in total bliss, before we sent him hurtling into the infinite chasm that is oblivion. Well, anyways,
You can
the alternate fight between the Knight and the
Non-canon
Radiance
death.
plays
He does
out
not
differently
stay
than in the
dead.
vanilla ending. This time around, the Knight is
Nobody
not
touch
accompanied by
Mender
any
Bug, you
shades.
heathens.
Instead, after defeating the Radiance, the
achievement?
Knight
Screw
seems to
your
transform
achievement!
into this monstrosity. Now this creature goes by many names. The God of Gods, the Lord Shade, the Devourer, the Void Entity. But I don't really like any of those, so I will just call him Bill.
Why
Bill
Bill?
proceeds to completely annihilate the Radiance in spectacular fashion. We are then treated to the Embrace the Void ending. Bill comes back down from the sky, dropping into the rest of Godhome. The Godseeker
Oh.
starts to get pulled into Bill by void tendrils.
Is this a good
We
ending?
then cut to the Godseeker in the junk pit.
This doesn't look
Void
like we're the good
starts
guys.
leaking out of her eyes, and it appears as though Bill is making an escape back into the real world,
Huh?
which is probably a bad thing.
Yeah.
Finally, we see Hornet standing outside of the black egg as the infection begins to disappear from nearby vines. Hornet hears footsteps coming from inside the black egg as the Hollow Knight reveals itself to her and the two prepare for combat. So from this cutscene, we can see that the Radiance's death in
baddies!
Godhome actually did kill her for real, meaning that the infection over Hallownest is now gone. This means the seals inside of the black egg probably wore off, allowing the Hollow Knight to escape its prison. In other words, the Embrace the Void ending is a goddamn cliffhanger, and we have no idea how Team Cherry plans to follow this up. The Hollow Knight is running loose in Hallownest, and the Knight has transformed into a raging void monster that might try to destroy the entire kingdom, or at least what's left of it. What's even more strange about this ending is that the announced sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong,
Has
doesn't seem to
nothing
be
to
related
do
to
with
this ending
this
at all.
whatsoever.
But that's a whole different
It's
shit
only
show.
about Hornet.
Obviously, the biggest mystery
We
surrounding
don't
this
care.
ending is the appearance of Bill. Did this creature exist in the void already? Or was it somehow willed into existence by the power of the Godseekers? Did the Knight turn into this thing, or did it just become a part of it? Examining a statue of this creature and other forms of the Knight grant the player a Hunter's Journal entry for an ancient artifact called the Void Idol, which might imply this creature might have been worshipped by the ancient civilization. But again, that's pure speculation. We don't know what this worship of Void exactly looked like. Maybe the Void they worshipped took the form of something more sinister. There is one thing we know about this monster though. It's weak to flowers.
Oh my god.
Yes, these things.
It's
As it turns
What?
out, those delicate flowers that Zamir has stockpiled up her ass are
is
actually
it a
useful
water
for
type?
something.
It's
They
weak to
contain a
grass.
strange power that even deters the White Lady from touching one. The Godseeker, however, is dumb enough to accept a flower from the Knight. If the player does this, instead of Void being released out into the world, this flower pulls a no you, and the Godseeker and Void disappear into thin air.
You just give him
The
a
flower itself is described as giving off a pale light, which appears to connect it to the pale beings. Like I said before, pale beings appear to be some form of top-tier gods.
Before we
As of
fight,
right now,
would you like
we
a
are only aware
flower?
of two,
Haha,
the Pale
gotcha.
King and the White Lady. But
They're
the fact that Zamir
kryptonite.
brought these pale flowers from a faraway land implies that there are definitely more of them out there. Another small hint of the existence of pale beings are the pale ore items that can be found all over Hallownest. Did these come from the Pale King, or possibly some other pale being? And what exactly are they? Are they poop? In general,
They're
the
definitely
Godmaster
poop.
endings appear to be doing a lot of setup for future Hollow Knight content. Like I said before, Hollow Knight Silksong doesn't seem to
Oh,
connect
it's
these
lace.
events
They
on
showed the lace
surface.
fight before?
So we are in a bit of a
I didn't
bind
watch any
when trying to
trailers.
discuss what these endings actually mean for the greater narrative Team Cherry is building.
Hey, they're
There's definitely a lot
dying
more to
to
consider
hurt
about
you.
what the pale beings are and what properties they possess. And we also have plenty of questions surrounding the Void and how bugs have interacted with it in the past. It almost feels like we are looking through a keyhole, trying to grasp onto the totality of Team Cherry's creation. How powerful are creatures like Bill and the worms? Where did things like the Void even come from to begin with? How much bigger is the world beyond Hallownest? Is Bardoon into butt stuff? But of course, that's the appeal of a game like Hollow Knight. Having all of the answers to every question would just ruin the mystery of the world. Plus, if we didn't have questions like this to waste our time on, then what else would we be doing with our lives? Go outside?
Yeah, touching
Ugh.
grass,
And so this video comes to an end.
playing Hollow Knight.
Now I know the average attention span of a YouTube viewer is 9
Yes,
minutes.
exactly.
So let me leave you with a few
I
takeaways.
think I have only
1. Hollow
gotten,
Knight
like,
is a game about bugs.
20%.
I know this may come as a shock, but it's true. Watch the video again, and this time, Pay attention.
There's
You'll
actually
notice
about
right away, I
books.
promise. 2. Murdering your own babies might not be such a good idea after all.
Okay.
I mean, this
I
is
think it's
obviously just
overrated,
my
though.
interpretation of the game's lore. Other people might have different views on the subject of murdering babies, and every opinion is valid, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
I don't
or
wanna
anything.
like spoil a part, but this is also an annoying twist in a like MSQ Final Fantasy 14, and I was just like, when I saw that twist, I was like, this is stupid. This is so stupid. What is with this murdering babies is bad thing?
Manderbug is fucking dead. 4.
No!
Nothing is
Manderbug is
certain.
not dead. Manderbug is alive, just like the Grublings. The Grublings are all also alive. They all survive, and everybody's happy at the end. You're a monster. You can choose to be the monster. Neither the void nor the light is the good guys. They're not bad or evil. They're just light and dark, and there needs to be balance in the world. You can choose to be good or not.
This video probably has a few flaws in it. Trying to construct a cohesive narrative with the information found in Hollow Knight isn't exactly straightforward. I'm sure my views will change in the future, and I encourage you to explore the lore yourself. 5.
I don't think
And
I
this
can
last
explore
point
this
is fairly
deeply.
obvious, but I should mention it anyway. Cory in the House is the best anime.
Yeah? Is it?
It's a party every week, baby.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know Cory in the House. I feel like I'm missing out on some cultural significant milestone of TV, but I don't know anything about Cory in the House. No, I will never kill Manderbug. Manderbug will live, and he will live his best life. I will break his sign every day so he has something to do. This joke is ancient. This video came out 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Is it funny? Huh? I don't know. This was very complicated. My brain hurts. And it's not because I don't think he's not doing a bad job. I think the lore is just that complicated. How is it that I understand more from those freaking Warhammer videos than this video? Huh? What's going on? Okay, TLDR infection bad. So we've decided the only way to do it is to sacrifice an individual and contain it, and then sacrifice 3 other individuals, which you can beat up to allow. So like everyone thinks that you, the knight, are just going to replace the Hollow Knight, so that's why they allow you to beat them up, so you can take his place. Also, flowers are deadly. Yeah. What do you mean, Manderbug any percent? Around a minute of gameplay. No! Manderbug is alive. It's alive, and it's good, and it's adorable, and it's great, and yeah. Bug apocalypse. The zombie apocalypse. Blame God, you kill God, you become God. All of it is because of the Pale Kings. It's his fault. He wanted to play God because he was born to play God because he's a descendant of a worm that are gods. And then he knew that this was coming, and then when it actually came, he ran off and died instead of helping. But his idea of helping was to sacrifice his children. So Hollow Knight is Jesus. Hollow Knight is Jesus, and he sacrifices his life to contain this for your sins, for his dad's sins, to be honest. If you want to think about it, Pale King is both God and Satan all in one, because he gives everybody higher thought and sentience, but also dooms everybody to a horrible life, of becoming eventually infected because of his hubris. And the Radiance is just a salty bitch. It's also all the Radiance's fault. The Void is also scary, but basically we're going to use our enemies to fight our other enemies, and hope that that DLC ending where one fighting the light doesn't destroy the balance and the Void just takes over. Yeah. That's the TLDR. And also Hornet's the best character in the game, and Silksong is too hard to play. I'm waiting for his follow-up for Silk Song then. Yep. Colonization bad. We should just let bugs be bugs. We should have left them to their life of ignorance, right? We should have not made them think. Not taught them how to think. They had a good, simple life bugging around. And we gave them jobs. We made them do 9 to 5s and told them they had purpose and ripped them from their silly bugging life. Now they don't know how to fight and fend for themselves. They also just mindlessly worship the king, I suppose. Yeah. Everyone should be the mending bug. Yeah, everyone should just be simple and happy with all that they want to do in life. Just get one hobby. One hobby. And it will prevent you from getting infected somehow. Congrats, you now owe taxes. Exactly. Now they're getting taxed. How could they? My turn to play Silk Song? Nah. We know our limits. We don't limit test here. I could play Hollow Knight. That's the only way. But looking at those chainsaws, I'm starting to think I do not want to touch the king's special interest room. The Mender bugs didn't get infected. His simplicity protected him, okay? Is all the bugs that like try to think for themselves? Nah. You just need to be eternally happy. Just like Shurma, right? Just like Menderbug and Shurma. You just got to hold on to your foolish naivety and zest for life. And then you will be spared. Spared the pains of life, yeah. The White Palace area? Dude, I never would have gotten there myself. I don't think I would ever complete this game myself. I could get the first ending where we don't have to do any of the hard stuff and just become the next Hollow Knight. That sounds like the easiest ending so far for me. You have to fight hard people to get the real endings. That's too hard. You have faith? Look what faith did to the rest of them. You want to become a mindless zombie too? You're going to be spewing infection. You're going to be leaking out puss for believing in, you know, gods that no longer protect you. They can't hear their prayers. He's already dead. And even if you pray to the Radiance, he doesn't like you anyway. I don't know. Apparently only the bees made off okay. The bees were like, we are a hive mind. Or Radiance be like, okay, you gotta listen to what I say. And they're like, okay. And he's like, man, there's no resistance here. That's not fun. I'm gonna work harder to go and conquer the non-believers. And left the bees alone somehow. Yeah. Bug Meimi would be a doomer. Dude, I would move. I'm not staying here. All those other people that said they like left or like, oh yeah, Hollowness is a shell of its former glory. I'm living up there on the surface. I'm not living down there. It's dangerous. You can eke out a living. I will sell things with Cornifer or something. How does he even survive? Cornifer's like secretly a god, isn't he? It makes sense because Chakra is a like seasoned veteran or whatever. So they can wander around making maps. But how does Cornifer actually sneak around doing his geography homework, huh? How is he a cartographer without having to fight mantises and beat back infection and bugs and whatnot? He's secretly just like the GOAT. He's the strongest character in the game. He gets everywhere before we do. All pilgrim bugs in Farloom are pretty much dying. The Pale Kid did nothing wrong in comparison. That's true. The Pale King did have a semblance of a civilization better than Farloom's did. So maybe the Weavers were wrong. The Weavers that moved away from their kingdom, right? They were like, yeah, we saw something going down. We didn't want a part of it. But then things went down here too. And they're like, never mind, we're going home. I see. Invested in this bug lore. It's because This is the only game to make bugs cute. The bugs are very cute. Not only are they very cute, but Hornet is very cute. The grubs are very cute. I wish they didn't have maggots. See, the addition of the fleas in the other game and the cute fuzzy furry critters that you fight make it so fun and adorable. I do not want to see maggots. I do not want to fight that marm or whatever. I will be like grossed out as I attempt to hit it even. Maggots are not cute. Huh? You go grow some maggots yourself and see how you like it, huh? The horror kind of vibe? I guess it's like spooky atmosphere, but there's no jump scares or anything, and they're all tiny, cute little, like... I don't know, they're like cutely animated. Even if they scare me, all they do is like stomp you a little bit, you know? I'll fight the Doma guy. Doma! Doma, Doma! And then that'll be my canonical ending. Not a MILF, shut up! I hate that he put that into our head. Now if I ever see that creature, I'm going to be like, bleh! Terrible, awful, no good, very bad. Yeah, that was the video. Did we really spend an hour on it, or did we spend 2 hours on it? I feel like I didn't deviate that much from it. What did he get wrong?
Over the past few years of writing and producing YouTube videos, I've made a lot of claims. I try my best not to make false claims, but, and you might want to sit down for this, I do get things wrong sometimes. In fact, yes. I'll even, on occasion, say things wrong on purpose as a joke. But that isn't going to happen in this video. This video is a serious one. In fact, with this video, I plan to right the wrongs of my past. After all, what better way to celebrate the month of April than by taking a look back at my older videos and pointing out my past mistakes. In this modern age of influencer culture and the rampant spread of misinformation online, it's important that people remember that just because someone said it in a YouTube video, that doesn't mean it's true. And I'm not talking about the unimportant stuff like news and politics either. I mean Hollow Knight lore. If you take one thing away from this video, know that a true Hollow Knight lore fan believes in their theories because they evaluated the evidence on their own, not just because they heard me say it in a video.
Is always like this.
Because, as you'll see, I do get stuff wrong. We're going to be going through some of my videos and looking at times I was completely off base.
Maybe it's just
and I
for
don't
men.
mean in a vague, up to your own interpretation kind of way. I mean flat out incorrect information. And to help me identify all these mistakes, I even recruited the help of the Moss Bag community. I was blown away by the sheer number of thoughtful, useful, and respectful responses you all sent in.
All of them! Around the timestamp, 1 second.
I might
Anything that mentions Silk Song.
just be the lucky
All of it. Why Hornet isn't void. Across the whole of the video.
to have the support of you all.
Okay. I understand this completely. Same as a VTuber. And my comments are just like, sorry, you got everything wrong. You know nothing. Why even speak?
I am truly blessed.
142 responses is pretty high.
To start things off, I want to look at what is easily my most popular video.
The one I
the
just
mostly
watched.
complete lore of Hollow Knight. This video has garnered an astonishing 1,000 views over the last 5 years.
1,000
So I thought it would be best to
views?
start off with this
It was
one.
much more than
So
that.
what did I get wrong in this video? At one point I explained the concept of pale beings. You know, the Pale King, the White Lady, Michael. I then say this. What exactly are pale beings? Well, we don't know for sure, but they seem to stand out even amongst higher beings as being even more powerful. The thing is, there's no evidence anywhere in Hollow Knight that the pale beings are more powerful than other higher beings.
Oh.
I said it in the video with such confidence, but it really was just speculation on my part. Honestly, I'm not even sure if the pale beings we see in-game are actually stronger than the other higher beings we see in-game. I'm not a particularly big fan of those who is stronger debates. Like, maybe Mr. Bean is stronger than Goku. For all I know, the gravity in Goku's universe might be 10 trillion times weaker than it is in
Wow.
Britain. So I tend not to think about that kind of stuff with Hollow Knight characters. But I don't know, is the White Lady really stronger than the Radiants? We know so little about these gods' powers, it's just so hard to say anything with any sort of certainty. Now, here's something else I said that was strictly wrong.
This guy has
So why
lore?
is the brooding Moloch brooding? Because all its friends are dead. And there you go. That's the lore for the brooding Moloch.
He has
Also, it's
lore.
the only character in the game with a visible asshole. This is just not true. There are, in fact, other characters with visible assholes in Hollow Knight.
No, this is not
There's
the lore we
Divine.
needed.
And Elderbug.
No way, there's Elderbug.
So yeah,
what
this
do
is
you
an
mean?
instance where I was completely objectively wrong. A massive blunder on my part for sure, and a stain on my reputation for all time.
Do we
Next
need
up
to
is
stare
my
as
Dream
puckered
Warriors
bug?
video.
Oh.
In this video, I talked about Gorb, and mentioned that he might be an alien due to his hint in the Hall of Gods reading, Dreamborn God of the Beyond. But I think there's a much better explanation for the use of the word beyond here. The Howling Cliffs is on the edge of Hallownest, connected to what one might call the Wilds Beyond, mentioned in the Elegy of Hallownest. I completely forgot about the connection when writing my script, so that's 2 videos released in 2020 with blunders in them. Man, that was not a great year, was it?
Two
Next up is my
videos
Sly is
wrong.
Hegemol video. Now this video is a fan favorite, and the main part of the
Sly?
video about Sly being Hegemol,
Oh,
one
that
of the 5 great
guy.
knights, is all
Oh.
airtight. But at some point in the video I did want to tie the theory back to an actual historical event, to help make my point a little
What's
clearer.
his Burger King
But
crown?
in that part of the video, I stated that King Otto I's raid of Poland took place in 962. Yeah, obviously it actually started in 963. I really looked like an idiot there. Sorry about that one, guys.
Yeah, all you 1963
The Mask Maker
years.
video has what I think is my worst mistake to date. I'm so embarrassed this video got 1 million views. I mentioned that there are void particles floating around in the Mask Maker's room, and that's just completely wrong. The particles in Mask Maker's room are just dust particles that appear in tons of other rooms throughout the game. If you want to see real void particles, you have to go to places like the Abyss.
There's a difference?
These particles grow and shrink, whereas dust particles just sort of fade in and out.
What?
My next mistake is from the video titled, Hollow Knight Cut Content. Edit. I know the Hive has a boss now, please shut up. In this video, I said that the Hive doesn't have a boss, when it clearly does. So what's the deal with that? Well, you see, the Hive Knight boss
Hey.
fight wasn't actually in the base game.
They got
It was
a
added
boss?
in March 2018, along with the Lifeblood update. So the video was only accurate for about a month or so, before
Rough.
Team Cherry sabotaged it. And I'm
On-
still mad about
On
it.
purpose.
I love
This
hamburgers.
man said there was no boss.
And then
Let's
there's my
fix
video
that.
solving the Hollow Knight Silk Song ARG. This one is a real
an
fan
ARG?
favorite. Figuring out what the cake really meant and the truth behind Little Bomi was so satisfying.
What?
It should be on my channel right now,
Oh
so
my
please
God.
go check it out.
What?
So what did I get wrong with this video? Well, everything I said about Silk Song's release date was correct, so don't worry about that.
Yeah. When was this released? 5 months ago. Actually, not that bad. 5 months ago. Finally came out, buddy.
But in the video, I accidentally said Napoleon wasn't gay. Another mistake I feel awful about is in my Wanderer's Journal video. Basically, the book mentions that the Hive was unmarred by the spread of the Radiance's infection, and I thought the book was saying that the Hive wasn't infected. But unmarred can also just mean that the Hive's operations weren't negatively impacted by the infection. We have a hint that this might be the case from the whispering root in the area that has the Dreamnail dialogue, light familiar. In other words, the bees might have already been operating in a hive mind-like state before the Radiance's infection, so nothing about how their society works has changed. And then there's my Hollow Knight Dreamcast video.
Huh?
Now this one is a fan favorite,
Huh?
but I really missed the ball when I forgot to cast Chris Pratt in any of the roles. Chris Pratt is an
No!
amazing actor in Hollywood,
No!
and I really should have given him a role. I got
Oh my
a lot
God.
of hate from you guys for this one too. I know how much you guys like the Mario movie. I know how much you guys like the new Garfield
Oh
movie.
god.
And I should have thought of that when making my casting. I was surprised by how much of a fan favorite my Undertale lore video was. I didn't even know people
Undertale?
cared about Undertale and Deltarune anymore. Anyways, What did I get wrong this time? Well, it turns out that Frisk is actually being controlled by Chara the whole time. Wow, that's
He's
crazy,
just making
isn't it?
stuff up now,
I
isn't
couldn't
he?
believe it either. But I put it in this corrections video, so it must be true. And now we have the real life
Just to make
bugs
people
video.
bad.
There are 2 mistakes in this video, but guess what? Neither one of them are mine. The first mistake
Oh.
actually comes from my dear friend Tirzu, the special guest in the
Throwing
video.
someone else
When
under the
talking about how
bus.
the bugs of
Okay.
the Mantis tribe lose their wings when turning into adults, he said that there are no examples of bugs that have wings when they are nymphs or larvae, and then lose the ability to fly when entering adulthood. And while Tirzu wasn't strictly wrong, he did leave a comment on the video clarifying one thing. There are certain insects, like some ant queens, who actually tear their wings
Ooh,
off in
that's
adulthood
metal.
once they've settled down. So while some insects do lose the ability to fly, it's from a point earlier in
He
adulthood,
literally got a
not from a point before that.
entomologist
The second mistake
to
is
explain
contentious.
bugs. Dude, the 7 years between Hollow Knight and Silksong were really rough for you guys, huh?
Are you enjoying the video? Hi, I'm Meimi, and this is Hattie. If you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing to my main channel. These clips are from live streams I do every week. Thank you!
You have nothing to make content on, so you got a freaking bug expert.
I've gotten so many comments from people saying that Quirrell is a pill bug. I don't know why so many people say this when boulders are right there. And we also never see Quirrell roll up into a ball. You know, the one thing pill bugs actually do. So I'm just
So
going
what
to
is
say
he?
you guys are the ones who are wrong about this one. Shame on you. I'm unsubscribing.
It's true.
And
He
we,
never
of
rolls.
course, can't forget about this fan favorite video,
Oh, what's-
Blackworm Unraveled.
What is black worm?
In this video, I talked about the Blackworm and how it perfectly connects all the loose threads left in Hollow Knight's lore. The revelations surrounding Zote's love child were
What?
especially noteworthy. But we've all seen the
He's
video, so I won't
messing
bore
with
you with
me,
the
right?
details.
There's no way
So what
Zote
did I get wrong?
gets.
Well, at one point I referred to
any
William
action.
Pellin, one of the creators of Hollow Knight, but I accidentally pronounced his name as Glauyufilawame PLF, which, yeah, that was a stupid mistake on my part. And now we come to my Cuphead lore video, probably the video I'm most proud of. This is a video that really put me on the map and solidified me as the
Cuphead is one
Cuphead
of
lore
those games
master
I
I
can
am
never
today.
play.
But I did make one small mistake. I'll just play this clip from the video. Okay, so Satan's a fucking moron. Why would you piss someone off that can literally shoot bullets from his goddamn finger? So yeah, the thing is, Cuphead only gains the ability to shoot bullets from his fingers after talking to Uncle Kettle, which only happens after the devil makes his deal with him.
Wow.
So I got my wires crossed a little bit.
So basically, why would you piss someone off that had an uncle that can allow him to shoot bullets off his finger? Minor correction there.
But otherwise, this video is airtight, and I highly recommend you check it out. Let's move on to the video that started it all. Hollow Knight Lore and Plot Explained. My first mistake
Outdated.
occurred almost immediately when I accidentally called the person in this photo Dave Kazi. Dave joined Team Cherry shortly after Hollow Knight's Kickstarter ended, but this photo actually features Rowan Fraser. Rowan was an artist on Team Cherry's early Game
oh my
Jam
god.
games, but he didn't end up working full-time
What
with Team
is
Cherry on
this?
Hollow Knight. He's sort
So
of like the
itty.
forgotten fourth Beatle, Ringo. And this was an incredibly stupid mistake. I'm lucky I didn't have any subscribers when I posted this video, otherwise I would have lost them all. Another mistake I made was assuming that the Grim Troop DLC was going to reveal a bunch of stuff about Deep Nest. I don't know why I thought that, other than at the time I was a stupid baby. Finally, I maybe sort of said Hornet was void.
Oh.
I don't know if this is even a relevant discussion anymore, but back in the early days of Hollow Knight, there was a bit of confusion floating around about whether or not Hornet was void like the Knight and the other vessels. The confusion, as I understand it, stemmed from this line Hornet says in the Abyss. Though our strength is born of similar source, that part of you, that crucial emptiness, I do not share.
Ooh.
Basically, some people thought the emptiness Hornet referred to here wasn't strictly the actual void substance, but instead that the Knight had a different kind of
Actually,
emptiness.
she just meant that they're
Hornet
siblings,
mentions earlier
right?
in the game that the
They're
Knight has a
half-siblings.
resilience, born in part from its time spent outside of Hallow Nest, giving an alternative explanation for this crucial emptiness line. There was also the fact that Hornet has a black body, and does look somewhat
It's 'cause
similar to
she's
the
so
vessels, And this theory gained enough traction that I saw it posted a few times while browsing Reddit and Discord, trying to make sense of Hollow Knight's story while still scripting that original video. So I shared that view in my first lore video as a possible interpretation of the lore, and then in my Zope video, I brought up this theory again, stating it as if it were a fact. It is possible for siblings to have personalities and voices, since we know that Hornet is a sibling. So technically, this was a mistake for my Zote video, What's the Deal with Zote the Mighty, a Knight of Great Renown. Applause. My second Zote video, Zote, my personal hero, was a fan favorite on the channel.
I want to watch these actually,
I say
Zote.
it was because, well, there's been a reevaluation of Zote's character in recent years. Sure, he says he's a Knight of Great Renown, and his 57 precepts are genuinely great life advice. Since listening to Zote's lectures, I've cleaned my room, fixed my diet, and cut all ties with my parents. But it turns out Zote has a darker side. When talking to him in Dirtmouth, he claims to have earned a trophy in the Coliseum of Fools by defeating a foe to thunderous applause. But then I remembered, I actually saw Zote in the Coliseum of Fools twice. The first time he was in a cage, and the second time he was only fighting me.
This is
so when
how
did you
I
defeat
fight.
this shielded fool? That's when I thought, is Zote lying?
No,
Did he just take the helmet off a corpse someone else had already killed?
Never question
Taking credit
your
for someone else's
heroes.
work like that is totally unacceptable. I even made an entire 4-hour video explaining how wrong that is. So the mistake I made in this video, Zote, my personal hero, dear viewer, was even calling Zote a hero in the first place. I fell into the Zote pipeline, and before I knew it, I myself was spreading Zote propaganda. And for that, I am truly sorry. My hidden Easter eggs in Hollow Knight video was a lot of fun to make. My favorite part about it was I got to talk about games other than Hollow Knight for a change.
There's a third character with the shadow
Thank
of Zote.
God. But
Did
instead
they
of
not
making
make
a false
Zote's
claim,
game?
the mistake I made in this video was omitting something
Kickstarter
so obvious
lie.
I've been annoyed at myself ever since.
Okay,
The
I don't.
Grubberfly's Elegy,
Oh?
the charm that gives you a projectile beam attack while at full health,
No!
is obviously a reference to Link's beam sword attack in Zelda.
Uh-oh.
Now, I'm a huge Zelda fan.
Oh.
It's such a good TV show.
I didn't expect
I
that
hope they
to
make it
be
into a video
what he was
game
talking
someday.
about. I was like, is he gonna talk about
And
the
then, of course,
Grubberflies?
there's the video about the Hunter's true identity. This one is a fan favorite.
He says
Fans
that
were
about
really
every
impressed that I
single
was able to
video.
identify the Hunter as King Otto I, the very same king who raided Poland in the year 962. But I did make
Wait, he
one
already
small
said this
mistake in that
already.
video. I referred to Otto I's successor as Berengar III, when it was actually Berengar II.
Oh my god.
Whoops.
He's really petty about this, huh? 142 responses and he really went through them, huh? This is gonna be a fan favorite. No, Zote is the GOAT. You just gotta believe in him. We're gonna get a Zote game. Trust. I'm so curious about the Zote one now. Is it actually funny though? His jokes do not land with me. I think we just do not come from the same realm of like references. I'm just like, what is he talking about? Who is this person? I don't know. Check the date of the video. The Zote video? Or do you mean it's just gonna say 5 months ago? Isn't April Fool's joke? Was April 5 months ago at this point? Crazy. How much more? How much more lore is there? How did he do years and years of this? There's so much. This is where he like, okay, like he started with like a presumably slightly incorrect one, and then he made this one 5 years ago, and ever since he's been making videos. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun about making videos? What exactly did he talk about in this entire time? Huh? Hollow Knight art book analysis? He just made like 50 trailer analysis of Silk Song. It'd be kind of funny for him to go back and make a video about how he was correct or wrong in every single one of his Silk Song videos. Especially since Silk Song being a sequel is not actually very related to the main Hollow Knight storyline. That's the way they cope. I guess. I mean, there's people watching it, so why not? Every video being like, where's Silk Song? I don't know. I feel like Hollow Knight lore, there's only so much you can watch. There's only so much you can understand before you understand you don't understand, right? I don't think I understand anymore. I don't think videos will help me any further. Oh. Grim Troop? I feel like maybe I just need to encounter them in game. I don't even know who the Grim Troop are. Dream Warrior lore explained. Hollow Knight beta. Coliseum of Fools lore explained. Released April 1st. Informative under all the chaotic references. It was informative about getting back at the fans, for sure. That's what I should do. Make a Google form being like, tell me everything I've done wrong. And then go back and be like, my mistake. It was really awful of me to have streamed it and said this line right here. I know I was trying to make a joke, but I should have remembered that I'm not funny. I will not attempt this in the future.